The whole story began when Chariot Blanc disappeared. She is the only daughter of the ducal Teardrop family. She was loved by everyone and never needed attention, because everyone wanted to give her everything they had from the very beginning. The Duke understood that he couldn't just leave the situation, so he began to look for his daughter with the forces of the Empire so that there would be at least some results. The Duchess, unable to bear the grief, soon fell seriously ill. It's always the hardest thing for a mother when something happens to her child. Teardrop finally found his daughter. Charietta did not remember anything about what happened to her after her disappearance. Perhaps the family hoped that the girl would clarify the situation, but nothing of the kind happened, and the man left the daughter alone. The young man tried to do everything in his power for Chariot Blanc, who deserved it. She tried her best to please her father. It seemed that the happiness of a family of two would last for an eternity. A little more time passed, and it was all over. Another girl appeared with the same hair, the same face, and the same name, the real Teardrop. Everyone loved the girl, but in fact, the Duchess was just her replacement, who was then simply removed from the stage. The beauty was falsely accused and thrown into prison so that there would be no unnecessary problems. The state should not have several citizens who are so identical. Everyone turned their backs on Chariot the impostor, including her own father and the servants who once addressed her as mistress. Everything seemed to be erased from memory, but it was impossible to forget only one person. New Teardrop carefully descends the stairs to the bottom of the basement to ask how her friend lives in such conditions. This girl is now number one, the one who used to be the blonde who was thrown away as an unnecessary thing. The father said that the lady would be executed at dawn. The servants say that the head will even be cut off, but it is not possible to find out more details. There are too many extra eyes around, so the beauty decided to poison Chariot. There is no need to worry, because the blonde has a special poison from which she will definitely not be able to die peacefully. The blonde sits with her head down, wearing a gag that prevents her from screaming. She was already tired of trying to ask for help, so she drooped. Chariot describes everything in detail. She will be in so much pain that her blood will freeze in her veins and her insides will burn with fire. The heroine will have to die a terrible death, although she did nothing. Now the blonde will finally become the one and only Teardrop. She will be able to make sure that she is respected and that no one is exactly the same as herself. As the successor of the family, she will receive an inheritance and will shine brightly while her rival untimely fades away. The beauty will be remembered as an impostor who pretended to be the Duke's daughter for many years. Approaching closer, the heroine lifts the girl's chin like a fan, and looking straight into her eyes, again reminds her of what a pathetic creature she is. The answer never follows. This will only be better even for Charietta herself. They hit her on the cheek, again causing physical pain that cannot be compared with the moral pain from which she has been suffering for many years. When a rival sits on a chain, it begins to seem as if everything has fallen into its rightful place. That's right, she looks her best. Noticing that the girl is not showing any activity, the beauty chuckles. Usually the girl kicked and cursed the blonde even with a gag in her mouth, but for some reason now everything has changed. It seems that humility came faster than expected. You shouldn't blame Charietta, because everything around didn't belong to the impostor from the very beginning. She was just a substitute, and the family, publicity, and good memories were destined for someone else. The beauty should be grateful that she had the opportunity to live in luxury. Leaning closer, the woman smiles her nasty smile. She wants to say one last thing, so she tries to do it as best as possible. It turns out that the person is not the real Chariot either, which makes the blood run cold. Starting to laugh, the blonde asks if her opponent will kick again. Even if she is exactly the same impostor, it doesn't mean anything, because there is no chance. The girl does not want to leave the slightest chance, so she decided to tell about it, knowing that the secret would not be revealed. The woman understands that she only has one last chance, so she reaches forward. It was still useless, because the chains restrained the body, taking it back to the wall. The chamber is filled with wild laughter, which makes it creepy. Applying a napkin with poison, Teardrop smiles. She says goodbye to the girl and turns around. Instant pain pierces the whole body. It seems as if the heart can't stand it anymore, so it breaks. Blood runs down her chin as the lady asks why he should make her suffer. She will never be able to forgive the one who did this. The blonde jumps up sharply. She is in a soft bed. Pillows are placed around as if for comfort. The whole body is covered in cold sweat, and the echoes of the pain that was just spread throughout the body are still making themselves felt. The girl looks around her usual room, not quite understanding what happened to her. The brunette bursts into the room, asking what happened to the lady who made the noise. Belle steps back, again asking what happened that influenced the mistress so much. The woman heard the girl suddenly scream, so she realized that she should be worried. She asks about the doctor, who could help a lot if something happens. Pictures of what happened earlier are reflected in my head. The same maid screams that the blonde pushed the mistress, and she is dragged away by the guards. Initially, the heroine could not even imagine that they would ever decide to betray her. Asking how old she is now, the lady hears that tomorrow she will be 20 years old. Tomorrow is the very birthday you should be afraid of. On that very day, the real Sharietta appears, who then turns out to be the same imposter. Obviously, the story would again find exactly the same plot, even if the lady tried to change something. The maid does not leave her mistress. She moves closer to sit on the floor next to the bed. The girl asks again what happened, because all this looks like a bad dream that came at night. By turning away, the beauty tries to hide her true thoughts, which affect her facial expression. It seems like nothing can be explained, so the lady just accepts the fact that it was probably a dream. They should start preparing to make it just in time. Chariot Blanc still doubts whether it was just a nightmare, but for now she is going to put all unnecessary thoughts aside, because she has a social debut ahead of her. Walking out into the hallway, the lady meets the father, who immediately says how beautiful his daughter is on this special day. The response is a quiet, "Thank you." It feels like only a day has passed since the man found the girl. He still can't get used to the beauty who is always nearby. Every day she becomes prettier and surprisingly quickly becomes an adult who will very soon be ready to make her own decisions. My father always took great care of Chariot, because for him, she was the most important thing. Thanks to the love with which he surrounds the girl, she does everything possible to be for him that very daughter who will be diligent. That dream still haunts me no matter what, because everything was too realistic. The Duke's feelings changed dramatically, as if he had never even known his old girl. Posing herself as a duke's daughter for the sake of a man's fortune, the lady herself did not notice how she became mired in lies and deception, which dragged her even deeper into the abyss. The girl, unfortunately, has become a replacement, which in an instant may turn out to be of no use to anyone. She didn't notice how she made herself into the one she was initially afraid of. Unfortunately, there is no turning back, because events should have changed much earlier. The blonde brings the beauty out of her thoughts by asking if they can go already. Shaking off her obsession, Charietta nods. Still, her father loves her too much, so, of course, he will never leave her. They are a family that cannot be separated, and everything will be fine for them until the end of their days. A servant announces the arrival of the Duke and his daughter Teardrop. The couple slowly enters the hall, but at that very moment, another person calls for his lordship. From the voice, it becomes clear that now there will be some bad news that I would like to avoid. Filio leans over the young man's ear and tells him something in a whisper so that the maiden would not be able to hear what happened. The man asks to forgive him because he will have to leave and leave his daughter alone for a while. Horror is reflected on the face because it becomes clear what follows next. I can't believe that everything that happened in a dream is happening in reality. The woman is unable to withstand the pressure, so with the last of her strength she grabs her hand. She asks the Duke not to leave, leaving her alone, because today is her birthday. You can't ask for much, so the only request is to stay at least until the celebration begins. Without stopping for a moment, the hero says that he really should leave. The promise flies out as if it were something insignificant, because the man promises that he will return by the beginning of the holiday, even if something else is heard in his voice. The blonde knows in advance how this event will go, which will become one of the most terrible in her entire life. Several hours passed, but Teardrop never returned. The celebration passed, accompanied by the condemnation of the head of the family, who did not come to his own daughter's holiday. People realized that the Duke's relationship was broken, and now nothing could be returned. Still, what we managed to see earlier was not just a terrible nightmare from which one could wake up. Until then, the Duke had never been disappointed in Blanc, since she lived her whole life as an ideal girl. For some reason, It was not possible to leave everything as it was. No one has ever betrayed a heroine like this before. She does not want to die in terrible agony and does not want that dream to be repeated in reality. The same pain that I had to endure when the new chariot brought a napkin with poison is still in my veins. The only option left is to start a new life that will mean a brighter future. In order to get what you want, you should quickly get out of the estate, which serves as a place of misfortune. Unfortunately, even if this changes something, the new heroine will pursue the girl even when she leaves the places where she used to live. If she gets hold of the Duke's name, Blanc will still be on her hook. This option, of course, does not seem to be the best in this case. It turns out that there is only one way out. A girl needs a force to be reckoned with. There is no other choice but to enter into an alliance with some noble family that will patronize. As you know, the Persithines Empire consists of 5 clans that united their lands and created a state. A representative of the most distinguished family was elected emperor. He managed to make sure that other people's lives weren't too bad either, so everyone was generally happy with their position in society. When the main duchy of Persian gained power, everything changed because they no longer behaved exactly as they had promised. The 4 remaining states respectfully faded into the shadows. Since then, they have been producing emperors, but the struggle for power still does not subside. Closer to the south is the Duchy of Orzent. The most fertile lands and mild climate are located there. This family is second only to the imperial family in power. The rest come next, however, as they say. None of them will ever compare with the original. Considering the reputation and status of that state, it seems like the best option that will never lose. Despite all this, the choice still falls on others, because in Orzente, the lady, most likely, has nothing to offer. Monazaltis is the weakest of all 4 noble families. The lands of the brave warriors who are stationed there are in the north, and each of them is fighting such a terrible climate that is ready to freeze everyone around. Nothing grows on frozen ground. No matter how hard people try to change this, they cannot, because no one can change the entire climate. After they began to accept foreigners, their imperial ancestry was also questioned, because the families were mixed. In addition to all the troubles that plague the duchy, the current head of the Duchy of Monazalt has a disgusting reputation. Rumor has it that he is a real savage who eats raw meat, as well as a bloody killer who is so ugly that people hate to look at him. Despite everything that is said in high society, Charietta understands that the future of the Duke will be the best. He will be able to help her, even if first he has to go through difficulties that should not break his strength of spirit. One day a man will become emperor. That dream was still prophetic, or it is the past in which rebirth is involved, but the fact itself remains reality. A man will be able to ascend to the throne. For such a notorious ruler to become the head of an empire is a real miracle, but, oddly enough, the Duke will achieve just that. The blonde herself did not expect what would happen, but with her own eyes she was convinced of the truth. It will be difficult for the Teardrop family to get Chariot from the north, where she will go. One can only hope that over time, the Duke and the new daughter will forget about the existence of the former specimen and will enjoy their time until the truth about Blanc herself is revealed one day. It will be Monazalt who will have the strength to resist the Duke. The woman has made a rough plan, but there are still a number of problems that cannot be solved so simply. They need to be dealt with in more detail. The girls who are selected for brides in the capital are all from noble families. Literally, no one will need an imposter like Teardrop herself, so she's unlikely to be put on a par with everyone else. Everyone is different, and this time the blonde was very unlucky. I want to scream because the task is problematic, but there is still no choice, so the lady sits over the papers with plans and a map to choose the best option. She really cannot understand how she will be able to enlist the support of the future emperor. There was one statement in the papers. It turns out that the man is staying in the capital for some time, but the beauty has no idea how long it will last. The information is interesting, and if you give it a chance to develop it, everything will turn out just fine. During this time, the virgin should prepare well so as not to hesitate later. The man in the cloak walks further past the palace. He looks around, sighing. The Duke never liked the capital, but still business trips cannot be cancelled. Ordering the knights to follow him, the young man enters the estate where he will stay. The morning has come, which should decide everything. The lady has arrived back at the Teardrop mansion, and heads straight ahead to her father's office. Opening the doors, she checks the Duke for his presence and enters decisively, because she should solve all the problems as quickly as possible. The man stood near the window, but as soon as he noticed his daughter, he returned to the table and sat down in a chair. He called the girl to talk about something important. The blonde knows in advance that she will be notified that the real Chariot has been found, and now she will have to return her good name. Hesitating a bit, Teardrop tries to formulate what he should say. The girl cannot stand the way they treat her, so she asks to quickly tell it like it is. It turns out that she is not the natural daughter of this family. With the disappearance of the child, the man's wife became very ill. Chloe couldn't bear what happened to Chariot, so she wasn't able to recover properly. To console her, the Duke adopted a girl who was exactly like their real Blanc. Everything went well for the time being. The baby turned out to be the one who is now sitting in front of the Duke. She glares at her foster father with a look that resembles devastation in a storm. Even knowing all this from the past, the lady still cannot completely ignore the feeling in her stomach, as if someone had torn out a piece of flesh. Quietly asking about the deception, the heroine cannot believe it, continuing to play. The blonde immediately begins to make excuses, as he originally intended to do. There was no malice in such an act, because he simply decided that it was not worth telling the truth so that he could play true family. After a while, the man finally decided to tell the truth, but it is still unclear why exactly, because something was the reason. In fact, yesterday, the real daughter was found, Chariot Blanc Teardrop, who returned. The girl tries to remain calm, although in reality she wants to ask what she did wrong. All the Duke wants is to restore his daughter to her name and her rightful fame in society, because she cannot sit locked up for the rest of her life with someone else taking her place. There are no plans to take anything else from the girl. She's still the blonde's daughter, and therefore he is not going to do anything that could directly affect the beauty's life. This might sound like a good offer, but everything is exactly as it has been in the past. Looking straight into the man's eyes, the lady asks what will happen if she refuses. The young man looks back and tries to say something, again calling Chariot by her name, which, as it turns out, also no longer belongs to her. Unable to stand it any longer, the lady jumps up from her seat, reminding her father that it was he, and no one else who called her by this name, gave it like everything else. She was raised as a true Blanc, and now she is simply asked to give up what belongs to a new person who appeared as if out of nowhere. It seems that the young man didn't even think about his daughter, because now he says strange things. If he really cared about anything other than his actions, the name would be the last thing talked about, because it's not that important. Again, saying how sorry he is, the main character still asks to understand his position, which did not just appear out of thin air. Even if it is difficult to accept the new reality, sooner or later you will still have to do something that cannot be avoided. Everyone around should feel sorry for the person who simply disappeared for half his life and wandered. The girl was supposed to grow up in high society and be happy, but this did not happen, because fate played a cruel joke on her. It was foolish to hope for sympathy, because only now it became clear that Teardrop was a terrible person. Hanging her head, the beauty says that she understands that the life she lived should have belonged to Blanc. She was just a replacement that would now be thrown away. The man asks not to express himself so openly, but this makes no sense, because everything that is said is the truth. The lady knew that they didn't think about her at all. There is only one option left, to act according to plan. If this is not done, in the future she will simply die in a cold dungeon, in agony that cannot be described. When she is called Charietta again, the lady asks not to say this name, because it no longer belongs to her by right. She is not going to be soft and condescending, because a second chance is given only once, and it is worth using it 100%. Starting to walk from side to side, the beauty suggests a normal scenario. If something happens, all past affairs will be assigned to the new Charietta, including the disrupted social debut on her 20th birthday. Everyone invited was too busy talking about the woman to look closely at her face. The heroine has nothing against the Duke staging a celebration once again and declaring the beauty the true heir. She has only one condition that will be fulfilled quickly. The girl asks to be given possession of the lands of Maraktha, which are not so far from the north. Getting up from his seat, the blonde asks why exactly the girl needs the land, but she remains silent. She knows perfectly well what exactly this is, because she herself has built a plan in which this territory appears. The places are famous for their beautiful views, despite their location. The blonde does not need the landscapes themselves, but the treasures that are there. She expects her life to be in a good position, and without Maraktha, this is not feasible. Walking out the door, the lady says goodbye, so as not to linger another second. The father promises that everything will be exactly as she wishes, because he will try to arrange everything as quickly as possible. Only a few days passed, which dragged on endlessly. The lady was tired of waiting, but now, when she sits in her father's office and sees the papers for the land they talked about last time, her soul becomes lighter. The beauty's name also changed. Now her name is Symphony, which seems like a pretty good option. Saying thank you, the lady gets a strange look. The man believes that there is no point in saying words of gratitude, because he did not do anything special, but on the contrary, he ruined the child's life. When asking when his daughter is going to leave, the guy hears that as soon as possible would be the best option. The beauty has packed her bags and is leaving in the evening. The conversation is interrupted by the new chariot, who asks for forgiveness for barging in. She thought that her father was completely alone in the room. Turning around, the lady faces a hostile gaze. She sincerely hoped that she would manage to avoid running into the person she least wanted to see. The girl seems innocent, but last time everything started exactly the same as usual. Symphony gets up from his seat, saying that they have already discussed all matters. She is about to leave, even if the interlocutor asks in surprise why everything happens so early and unexpectedly. The beauty asks her new friend to stay at least for a while, but the blonde says that there is no need. She doesn't want to linger even for a second, because she has completed everything that kept her in the estate. Now, a new chapter of life begins with a clean slate, which you can safely afford. There is nothing more to be afraid of, because the episode with the threat is over. It will be more difficult later, but at least there will be no threat of death. The girl stands on the edge of the abyss, realizing that now she should head to a place that should be a refuge for some time. After a night at the hotel, the lady gets ready to go to meet the Duke of Monazalta. It is still in the same place, so it is clear that the journey will not take too long. Things will soon go uphill if you continue to follow your plans. As soon as the lady arrived at the place where she was going, she was faced with a huge wave of hostility. Mothers stopped their children from coming near and accidentally getting infected, while others turned their noses up too. A foreigner has no right to walk around the capital so calmly. The lands where the heroine arrived belonged to one of the 4 noble families. There was no idea that the blonde would be so openly discussed right behind her back in front of the palace gates. People don't think there is any problem, so they behave as openly as possible. The woman decided not to pay attention to bad things, because she only benefited from what was happening. She managed to find the residents faster, only with the help of those who were crowding around. All that remains is to get inside, and this will be even easier than arriving north. The knight standing near the gate asks the beauty what she forgot in such a place. The girl came to ask for an audience with His Excellency the Grand Duke, who resides in this place. Still not intending to let the girl inside, the man asks if she had an agreement with His Excellency. It turned out that nothing of the kind happened, but the lady still has an important matter that cannot be delayed. Trying to find out what the matter was, the guy was sent away, because such things do not tolerate extra ears. You just need to meet the Duke in person. Either way, the knight refuses because the best thing to do would be to just leave. It's not worth giving up that easily. By again, speaking about how things are, the young man confirms the fact that he has no right to admit anyone except invited guests. Sighing, the blonde says that she can tell her where to find her, and then they can arrange a meeting. Turning away, the young man just shakes his head, saying that he cannot know how things are. His authority is only to report to the woman how things are, and everything else will be forgotten. Squeezing the handle of her suitcase, the beauty tries to quickly figure out what exactly she will need to do to get the result. His Excellency will not be in the capital for long, so it is worth finding a pretext on which to meet. In any case, the girl will have to go north to live there, because if she manages to become a wife, there will be no other choice. However, now you can try to do everything without going deeper into the snow. She really has very little time left, which is mercilessly running out. The symphony asks to find some other way that could be used. All she can do is almost beg. The knight frowns, and then abruptly draws his weapon. All that remains is to overcome it in order to gain free entry into the castle. As expected from the Northerners, they will try to solve all problems with brute force. You have to fight to get what you want. However, this will not be difficult for the former Chariot, because she will be able to overcome all obstacles. If the woman wins, she will be taken to His Excellency. The young man swears on his life, so, smiling, the blonde agrees to the duel. She realizes that there is very little left to achieve her goal. The girl has already agreed, so there will be no turning back. If something goes wrong, then the fight will be regarded as an act of hostility towards Monosalt. Even this option doesn't seem the worst, given the way things are. In other words, if a girl wins, she won't have any problems at all. The man promises that he will take everything upon himself, because it would be logical to do just that when difficulties arise that cannot be changed. Before fully starting to attack, the young man asks to take out his weapon one last time in order to begin to defend himself. Smiling, Chariot calmly says that she has no need for such things, because she will be able to defeat her opponent without a sword. Arrogance does not always lead to good things. The young man's blows become more and more rough. If he manages to get hit at least once, he will not be able to escape, and at this rate, unfortunately, no life will be enough. The knight says that if the lady surrenders now, then there will be no problem, because they will pretend that this did not happen. Caring is always nice, but it's okay, the fight will continue. If the lady herself is not going to leave, then there will be no mercy for her. Casting some kind of spell with just her lips, remaining silent, the heroine watches as the thick stems of plants embrace the brunette by the legs and belt, thereby lifting him to the top. Just a second ago, the young man was trying to force the beauty to surrender, but now he only shouts some words of indignation at the situation that is happening. He is thrown upside down, which causes strange sensations inside his body. The fight is over, but the guy still can't believe that the woman turned out to be one of those very magicians whom people are afraid to approach. By making the plants weaken, the blonde asks to forgive her, but she really needs to meet with Her Excellency. Kneeling on one knee and lowering his head to the floor, the young man says that there is no point in apologizing, because winners never say words of apology to losers. In this case, a promise is a promise that is unbreakable, and here you will have to answer for your words. After a while, the man says that the audience will still be organized. In this case, very soon the girl will be able to meet the Duke, whom she has been waiting for a long time. They definitely have something to talk about. Walking into the main hall, the girl sits down on a chair. Two people gather near her and look at the lady in the hood. The blonde notices that the hero does not look like a strong man and asks him to remove the hood, because this way he can get a better look at his face. Another young man asks his friend to be more careful with his expressions, because His Excellency's guest is sitting in front of them. Mahlers is trying to argue something, so he glares at the familiar man. According to the brunette, he still can't get rid of his plebeian ways. A tall man enters the door without knocking and announces his arrival. He is about to start talking right away, but servants appear in front of him and bow their heads. The lady does not dare raise her head, lest she reveal her appearance before the necessary time. She is approached, asking if she is the same person who overcame Fizern. The voice is low and rough. It makes your blood run cold, and you want to hide from horror. The Duke asks Symphony what brought her to the castle, but for some reason she is silent. It's strange that she doesn't seem able to speak, even if she has to hastily say that there's nothing wrong with it. Mahlers blinks his eyes in surprise, because his friend was defeated by a woman who turned out to be stronger. Monosalt turns to the servants and asks them to leave. They can wait outside the door until the couple finishes their dialogue. Without extra ears, communication will be much more comfortable than it was originally. Walking a few steps towards the lady again, the hero wonders what brought the girl to him. In response, only silence is heard, so the brunette threatens that if she doesn't start talking, then he will simply turn around and walk away. I want to get answers all at once, without delay. Raising her head, the beauty is faced with the assertive gaze that is bestowed on her. The man says out loud in disappointment that there really is a woman standing in front of him. They say that the Duke is unspeakably ugly, but the rumors have nothing to do with the reality in which the man looks quite handsome. Sitting down on a chair, Monosalt inquires about what business the beauty has with him. The girl has a trade proposal that will be said in this estate. It can help the guy implement the plans that His Excellency is making. If the hero agrees to the deal offered by the beauty, The plans will come true within 3 years. This is not the worst option that exists, so the blonde is confident that she will be given consent to this almost immediately. The man raises his eyebrow in surprise, because he had no idea that anyone knew anything about his plans, which he tried not to reveal just like that. The blonde nods her head, because it's true, but that's why she came with the product she's offering. She talks about her life. People from outside who have no connections with the Duke should not know about His Excellency's plans, because this could be dangerous. In this case, it is strange that the girl offers such a deal, because there must be a good reason for this. In fact, the only reason is that the beauty wants to survive. The name the woman once bore was Chariot Blanc Teardrop. It is known in wide circles, and it is also known what exactly happened on the territory of the duchy. Asking the young man if he knows about the disappearance of the Duke's daughter, the lady waits for an answer that should follow very soon. What happened was publicized. It was a fairly well-known incident. There should be no reason to ask such a thing, but it turns out that that same girl has never been found to this day. A man may assume that the girl decided to become a duchess instead of that same person, even if this is not true. The Duke took the beauty to his place to console his seriously ill wife. In fact, the symphony was a replacement for Chariot, which turned out to be hidden in an unknown location. It's strange that something like this is mentioned as a sad highlight, because being the daughter of a duke, although fake, is never a bad thing. All high society knew that the Duke doted on his daughter, who behaved in the best possible way and was a fairly diligent girl. As it turned out, the real Chariot showed up not long ago. She picked the perfect moment that suited her to show up. The girl knows that the lady is an imposter, but she understands that it is best not to tell the truth so as not to reveal her cards. Everything must develop slowly and wisely. Monosalt suggests that the beauty wants to get rid of her rival so that her life will become easier. The assumption is completely untrue, because in fact the woman just wants to find her place in life, because all this time she was a simple replacement. She never lived her own life. The lady does not want things to continue as they are, so she's trying to find a way to change the course of events. It's an interesting thing, but the man is not going to do charity work. Of course, he's also not going to buy something useless for himself, because he doesn't see the point in it. Of course, the beauty wouldn't even dare to ask for sympathy, but she has no other options but to try to say at least something. All the lady wants is a fair price for what she's selling. She doesn't want to sell herself short. Looking at the young lady, the man understands that she is quite persistent, so she is not going to give up so easily. All that remains is to promise golden laurels, because in fact, only the former Chariot knows that the Duke will one day become the new emperor. The man's face changes. The lady must understand how dangerous things she says out loud. The lady does not understand what the problem is, because the Duke himself is doing everything so that he can become the new king. He dreamed of this from the very beginning, but he simply did not show his ambitions as openly as everyone else from the 4 clans. The brunette nods his head and asks to bring him the ambitions that could be obtained. In fact, this is impossible, because the information that the beauty wants to sell is the future that awaits the guy. She tries to look as confident as possible so that they will believe her. Frowning, the Duke is about to say something, but the blonde interrupts him. She should tell the future much faster than she will have no chance of opening her mouth at all. A plague epidemic will begin very soon. It is a highly contagious disease that cannot be cured, which of course makes things more difficult. Charietta knows the remedies, but she needs a good hospital. Monosalt should order the gathering of the best doctors so that they can later be trained. The lady assumed that the man would not immediately believe her, and this is exactly what happened almost immediately after she completed her remark. If you believe in the words of the heroine, this can save Monosalt from the inevitable tragedy that follows on the heels of all of them. Human lives are not toys that can be used and then simply thrown away. The state should think about measures. If doctors are properly trained, it will save many lives that are so important. His Excellency's army will also be safe, and then in the future it will be possible to ascend to the throne faster. This is something that will remain an unchanged goal that you shouldn't even try to change. Disasters will not end only with an epidemic, because it will be followed by an invasion of hordes of locusts, and a terrible famine will begin due to crop failure. Turning away, the brunette declares that he no longer wants to listen to the nonsense that they tell him. He is too tired of what is happening. Judging by the expression on his face, the hero is going to leave everything exactly the same as it already is. The lady really knows how to see the future, so she knows for sure that His Excellency will become the emperor. He may doubt, or maybe he is sure, because everything will be exactly like this. The heroine still insists on the ability to see the future and is not going to back down, being left with absolutely nothing. If they listen to her, then they will be able to change the course of events that will happen. Changes will only be for the better. What the beauty saw was real. The Duke will become king, but achieving his goals will not be enough to win. He will be constantly afraid of being overthrown by someone else who will decide to rebel just like Brush himself did in his time. It is in order to get what is most important that the beauty is going to bring the man to unconditional victory. In this case, everything should work out as well as possible, if only Charietta turns to her for help. What the heroine says does not seem like a joke, because she looks quite confident. Following the will of the empire, the Northern Duchy was the first to accept foreigners, which contributed to what was happening. The result was not the best, but rather sad. The inhabitants of the country began to be called foreigners and barbarians, avoiding them in all ways. The policy of accepting different peoples is aimed at reducing the power of the four lands. The four predecessors contain a power that cannot be changed. Even new generations inherited it. Naturally, the rulers abandoned such innovations because they understood that they would not be able to overcome such obstacles that arose in their way. The only ones who agreed were the Montesalt family. At that time, the duchy was on the verge of decline, so they simply had no other option. The government could not survive without the support of the current emperor. I would like to somehow change the course of events, but it turned out that they did nothing. It was at that time that the former duke married a foreigner, and since then, the mixing of blood began in the northern lands. There were no more pure bloodlines left because others began to follow his example. Even if a man receives golden laurels, prejudices will not disappear. The young man doesn't care much about other people's time, but it's not clear whether everything will be exactly the same even this time. We must not forget about small details that can easily derail plans. Even if Brush doesn't care, ingrained prejudices will follow a person and cause him confusion. The very fact that the young man is the Duke of the Northern Lands will become a weakness in the eyes of rivals who will try to take away power. Bloodline is a power that the imperial family itself fears. Unfortunately, the Northern Duchy no longer has such power, even if I wanted to go back in time and change something. Now, all the children are of mixed blood. In Montezalta, which barely survived with the support of the imperial family, there was not a single purebred representative of the family left, and unfortunately, this remains true. One couple caused a lot of problems. His Excellency probably doesn't know, but the blonde is going to enlighten him. People call a man a half-breed simply because of his origin, which in fact does not pose any problems at all. A second later, there is a sword near the girl's neck. The brunette does not understand how the girl dares to talk nonsense without even showing respect to the most important character. It seems that Charietta does not value life at all, since she is ready to put it on the line. It seems that the young man still thinks that they would just lie to him without any reason. The foundation of the empire goes back to the distant past. Apart from Montesalt, no other family had the ancient power left, which even the imperial family had lost. Although others may claim that their blood is completely pure, true experts know that this is not true because it is physically impossible, given how the branches of history have passed. Once upon a time, in order to maintain the purity of blood, marriages took place within the same family. As you know, children born in consanguineous marriages had power that could not be changed and were destined for rule. Times like this didn't last very long. Consanguineous marriages gave rise to many hereditary diseases. One after another, children were born who were not able to inherit the throne. They were too weak to try to fight. It was after this that marriages within the same family were prohibited, becoming a dark page in the history of the empire. It was forbidden to even mention what had happened before, because the emperor was blown away by his paranoia and desire to remain close to the throne. All living people are of mixed blood. Only one family is despised for this, which is quite strange. Montesalt do not deserve the harsh treatment that is being given to them. What is happening is directly related to the weakness of the Montesalt family. When people talk about the northern lands, the first thing that comes to mind is that savages live there, eating raw monster meat. For some reason, no other idea even exists. The Northerners don't catch monsters, so there's a bit of a downgrade in the plot. The only difference is that animals are afraid, but the Monazalt genus is not. For the Empire, people from the North are just subjects, of which they already have a huge number. Nothing will change if you don't want it. The Duke is seen only as an evil dog. Usually, such animals do not do anything terrible, but they are constantly angry, as if they are trying to make others more and more afraid. Even when a man ascends the throne, nothing much will change. Many will be unhappy with the fact that they are ruled by an evil dog who should have been pacified long ago. Unable to stand it, the young man tries to say something, because for the last 5 minutes he stood silently, turning more and more pale. Those who are against will be immediately destroyed. Unfortunately, this will not work, because it will not be possible to keep people in fear forever. The guy can continue to try to express something, but nothing will go in vain. Brush's approach should be to give credit to other lineages. When Monazalt, the weakest of the four, seizes power, it is unclear what will happen to the peaceful empire, which will most likely try to protest to the last. It is because of all the circumstances that the lady is going to eradicate the contempt and prejudice to which they will be subjected. The lady hopes that soon after seizing the throne, the man will be recognized as the ruler in both hearts and minds. The girl is going to get something in return, but of course, she is not going to say what exactly she needed. When Brash ascends to the throne, she asks to be made his empress, who will rule her people in honor. It is clear that the lady will not care who exactly her new acquaintance falls in love with. By then, of course, he will find someone he likes and who can be made queen, but in that case, the deal is void. All the beauty really needs is not love, but the imperial crown, which she will soon be able to receive. After the service is provided to her, everything will fall into place. Grunting, the man notices the fact that the information just said turned out to be very bold. The beauty wants to know if she can count on something like this, since she will be so valuable to the guy. There may indeed be more moments in the future. A smile freezes on his face because there is silence in the office. The symphony has already expressed its conditions, but noted that so far the young man is not burning with desire to carry out anything. No matter how hard the heroine tries, she cannot remember what happened in her life before she came into the Teardrop family. I would like to know more, however, after she was found. Life seemed to be divided into before and after. The beauty has no idea who even her parents are and whether they were from any noble family. Apart from the fact of existence itself, the girl knows absolutely nothing, even if she tries with all her might to understand. In order to provide herself with protection and everything necessary, a lady needs that very imperial crown, which will guarantee at least something. What will happen next, Charietta is not able to understand, but she knows that everything will be fine. Obviously, the heroine knows no fear, even though she was thrown away like a useless doll. I can't believe that there is such a strong belief that she will be accepted back, because it sounds very funny. The 4 clans will be stronger, and each of them will try to gain at least some benefit. It will be more profitable for Brash himself if he has someone who agrees to help with the path to the throne. No one knows if he can do it alone. The blonde turns her tongue to say something like this, but in fact, deep down, she is still scared. She tried to avoid death, but her face showed slight confusion and disbelief that everything was going according to plan. The brunette cannot understand why the girl is so eager to take the imperial throne. Sometimes this happens when a person is trying to take revenge on someone, but sometimes there is some other reason. Teardrop is going to do everything for safety reasons so as not to fear for his life. The Duke's daughter hates the symphony, but on a separate level, which is somewhere high. You won't be able to avoid something terrible unless you have support. In order to survive, the blonde must be stronger than her, otherwise her life will simply be over very soon. The more she has, the more opportunities open up, and it works that way. You have to try, and if nothing works out, you still can't give up. The more effort the symphony puts in, the better position it can take. In any case, no one gives a choice. The Duke will very soon hate his ex-daughter, just like Chariette, because she will turn the man against the beauty. The woman is very arrogant if she believes that something like this will help her, and this cannot be taken away. Diamonds are expensive because everyone knows that they are valuable, and this is not only the opinion of Monazalta. It is obvious that the girl standing opposite him with such a position evaluates herself as a diamond. The heroine lowers her eyes to the floor. This does not mean that she is embarrassed, but she wants to try out her gift of persuasion. In the end, the answer to the question asked must be given by the young man himself, because he and no one else determines the price of the goods. Don't forget that it's best to buy something while it's cheap, because over time, prices usually skyrocket. The hero understands everything perfectly, so he turns around and goes to get the doctor to check the beauty's condition. The wound on the neck turned out to be shallow, but the arm, on the contrary, will have to be stitched up. Most likely, a scar will remain, but this is not so important, because the head is occupied with completely different thoughts. The maiden is no longer the Duke's daughter, which she cannot believe, no matter how hard she tries. Thoughts are interrupted by the words of the doctor, who is surprised to note that the patient never even made a sound, despite the fact that it was incredibly painful. To such a remark, the lady just shrugs it off, because in fact, she wasn't even in much pain. After 10 minutes, the procedure was completed. The doctor gets up to collect all his supplies in a suitcase, and then says that he needs to leave. The blonde thanks her for the service rendered to her at such a fast pace. As soon as the door closes, the man tries to start a conversation. Such people usually have no problems communicating, but in this case, he cannot express his thoughts. As you know, people don't buy damaged goods, since they value themselves as a thing. Smiling, Charietta says that the news is wonderful. The goods that the lady is offering are ready to be purchased in any case, judging by what they tell her. The girl has always been famous for finding loopholes that help her get out of absolutely any situation. If what Teardrop said is indeed reality, then the offer sounds quite tempting. A man wants to become a ruler, and it would be nice if this happened much faster. He is still tormented by doubts that do not go away, because you can say anything, passing it off as the future. The woman understands what exactly they want from her. Obviously, the handsome man wants to receive confirmation of the words that were said quite recently. The product must be genuine, and then the deal will be concluded instantly. The Duke's doubts are quite understandable, so the girl has no right to condemn him. However, nothing comes quickly. The young man will need time to be convinced that Chariot is right. No one has any idea how long the process of taking the first action will take. In Monazalta's place, the lady would have experienced the same thing, so this is very generous on the part of a person. From now on, the couple is in the same boat, but she doesn't want to be hated because of what's happening, so she's going to fix the situation. Arrogance is not the worst thing that exists in a person's character. Time will tell whether the girl is deceiving the man or is still telling the truth. I would like to hope that everything said will come true, because the young man cannot stop wanting to be a king. The brunette is going to observe the situation and how it will develop. He wants to conduct a short test as early as possible, so he immediately asks to predict the future, and then they will wait together until what is happening becomes reality. Handing out a sheet of white paper, the hero asks to write down different options for the development of events. They will be able to see what will happen next, and then it will be clear which option will be the most likely. The blonde doesn't know what to say, but she comes up with an answer pretty quickly. The lady believes that this is impossible because she does not completely trust the young man. I would like to tell what is necessary, but not more than what is intended to be heard. It is clear from the heroine's face that she is quite serious about herself. It seems that the girl is just asking to have her mouth shut. As he speaks the words, the man stands up and leans closer to look directly into his eyes. Usually the dead don't talk, and since that's the case, Monazalt can let the girl die and know what it's like to just be silent most of the time. He is too impatient, so he cannot completely control his temper tantrums. The lady again asks to calm down a little, because over time all the cards will be revealed, no matter how everything turns out. What is known is that already at dawn, the Duke will be summoned to the imperial capital as a matter of urgency. This will apply not only to Brash itself, but also to all other lands that are in the alliance. The man is clearly not surprised, because he can independently predict something like this, because for him it is not a problem. The heads of large noble families will also be there. As the symphony itself knows, the sun of the imperial days will set. This confuses the brunette, because he did not know that this would happen. The next king will be the second prince. The Duke himself will have to judge whether the woman is telling the truth or not. It might even be a lie. The next morning, a man bursts into the lady's room. Now it's time to make a choice. Kill the girl right away or leave her near you. Bowing his head, the guy tries to catch his breath, because he still doesn't believe it. He asks how the lady knew everything in detail that she could predict. The blonde remains unperturbed because she has already repeatedly said that she knows the future. For Mona Salt, this looks like someone's cruel joke. The girl does not want to give up just like that, because in any case, an acquaintance was personally convinced of the veracity of the words, because the prophecy came true. If a young man is upset about the future, then the best thing to do is to calm down. In any case, you can use the beauty for your own purposes. The Duke himself does not know that the lady, in turn, is going to use him for her own purposes too, because this sounds like a great plan. One cannot help but like what a man lacks. Those who have once known hunger are greedy, tireless, and ready to do anything to live in peace. The lady cannot even imagine how hungry the young man is. The stronger the better, because he will be able to reach more heights. Brush leans closer, asking the beauty what her name is, and she answers in a languid voice. They will start collaborating. The next morning, a maid was sent to the girl's room. Her name is Mercy Brown, and she promises to take care of the young mistress. A smile lights up on your face. The woman brought a dress that was prepared. It should fit, but is actually a little big. The blonde nods her head, saying that there is nothing wrong with it. It is much better to dress as you are than to dress as you are now. It must be admitted that the behavior was very reckless on the part of the young lady. She did what happened. The maid asks if she can help change clothes. This is one of her responsibilities that cannot be simply ignored. The lady says she can handle it herself, but she turned out to be much more agile than Miss Brown expected. She heard that in the capital, the young ladies are not able to cope on their own. The lady doesn't even try to hide her hostility and remains sharp-tongued. Apologizing for the awkwardness, the brunette promises that she will not ruin the mood. In this case, the girl can try. If something doesn't go quite as it should, you should always try again and again to make it work. The woman really wants to help Mercy. She couldn't let her awkwardness ruin His Excellency's honor and ruin everything. Freezing, the brunette wonders what the Duke has to do with it, about whom they didn't even talk. A master cannot have dignity if his servants are not properly trained and if he does not know how to govern his own people. Perhaps the man ordered the girl to be abused, or perhaps it was her personal decision, which was unchangeable. Apparently, Brown doesn't want to answer because he stays silent longer than expected. In this case, the lady will find out all the details on her own. The girl is insolent to the master's guests, despite the fact that she herself is afraid of him most of all, because, of course, she doesn't want to do anything wrong. This is scary. The one who came from the capital is not liked precisely because of her origin, which is so strange for the rest. Perhaps there is another reason. If something was wrong, then it was necessary not to show it, so that it would not become even worse and more unpleasant than Symphony herself, who is an additional person. Before expressing your dissatisfaction, it would be worth considering who is giving the orders, as they may become angry or upset if something goes wrong. The lady expected some kind of hostility, so she is no longer surprised. She no longer needs help, so she asks to move out of the way. The people of Monasalt do not like strangers, and especially those who come from the capital. It is not surprising that Sharietta was greeted this way. One of the servants comes inside to ask the girl if she is ready. They can move forward without paying attention to Brown, who is angry. An attitude that doesn't change is just the beginning, and unfortunately, the lady is unable to do anything about it because there is no help for her. His Excellency was waiting for the woman. He has been patient, but it seems to be in vain because nothing is happening. Starting from the very beginning, Teardrop notifies about an insult from a girl. Apparently, she came to complain. A lady should be able to be a duchess, but until she is one, she is not going to tolerate anything like that. She's a guest, and Brown should know her place. If the blonde does become someone high-ranking, then everything will turn out just fine, but it will be seen in the future, because time will tell. Brush prepared a prenuptial agreement, because now they have a deal. It seems that everything is written there in the smallest detail. All that remains is to sign it and hand it over to the temple. As soon as the date for the wedding ceremony is set, the couple will be declared husband and wife, who will officially become them for the entire empire. To save the marriage, you will have to fulfill some conditions that definitely cannot be avoided. Simply put, it is an agreement between the parties. There are only 5 conditions that need to be met. It seemed that there should be more of them, but, of course, this will not happen, because there is no need for this. The first step is to comply with all the duties and rules from your spouse, as well as respect her personal boundaries, which must be skillfully built. The beauty's desire is already known, and she doesn't need more. She needs a comfortable life and safety, which, of course, must be guaranteed. The young man hopes that they will fulfill all their wishes. The lady cannot believe that they are already getting married, as everything has passed too quickly. The wedding will take place when the couple returns to Monazalt, because there is no point in lavish ceremonies. Symphony took the information much more calmly. Still, there really is no point in arranging something grandiose, because, of course, nothing will change if they do without a ceremony. A wedding is a good reason to celebrate, but in Monazalta, everything is much different. It won't even be given any special significance. Monazalt is looked down upon by stronger powers, and for this they are despised in the Northern Duchy because of the way they behave. When Symphony takes on the role of a bride, the powers that be will not care, but the people of Monazalta are unlikely to be happy with the capital duchess. The brunette doesn't quite understand logic. It seemed that most women dreamed of a lavish wedding that would be something special for them for the rest of their lives. If everyone dreamed of something like this, everyone would live an exemplary family life. However, as practice shows, this does not happen. If only the lady's goal was not a wedding, because the contract they sign is more like a business alliance that was drawn up with a bang. This is not at all a pure ceremony for souls, for this is an enterprise that seeks to obtain the greatest benefit at any cost. The day of departure for the north has arrived. The man asks the lady one last time if she has any regrets, and receives a nod. The woman chose this path herself, so condemnation would be a very strange option to do this. The young man orders to go to Monazalt. As far as the man knows, yesterday there was a celebration at the Teardrop mansion at which the official heiress was introduced. Taking a break from watching the scenery outside the window, the girl nods her head, because she had already been notified of this news in the morning. That's all she can say. The Duke cannot understand the reason for the new wife's indifference to what is happening in the house in which she grew up in love from an early age. As it turned out, the blonde doesn't even have any special thoughts about saying anything. Teardrop is not going to get involved in the family idol. It became known that for the last few years, all the affairs of the Duke were managed by his daughter, but for some reason, now all eyes are turned to the new chariot. Perhaps the lady should be offended by the fact that everything turned out this way, but she doesn't care about it. Until recently, the Symphony lived in prosperity under the patronage of the ducal family, so it perceives this as payment for those times. The girl turned out to be very smart. Unfortunately, she had no choice. Otherwise, her father would have gotten rid of the extra mouth long ago. In fact, the heroine does not look like a person who would be so easy to get rid of, because one gets the feeling that she stands up for herself like a mountain. The young man knows a lot. The sudden emergence of a real heiress cannot cope with the work that, it would seem, she had done years earlier. It turns out that all previous achievements belong to the one who previously occupied her place. This all goes to the beauty sitting opposite. A real teardrop is also capable of a lot, but not in this case. Until now, the beauty seemed to not care about what was happening. All this time, the man was trying to determine the value of the lady, and once again wanted to make sure that he really received the diamond. Still, the result was more than satisfactory. The lady did not even expect such words, and even so early from such a person. Since he and Brush now have a common cause, there is no need to be too careful. They, as mentioned earlier, are in the same boat. The man is concerned about the beauty's personality. It all starts with the power with which it was possible to defeat Fazarn, who was standing near the gates of the mansion. The girl does not immediately understand what the problem is, but she did not know that something was so alarming. The Duke knows how to rule a country, so he understands that the best option is to hide his interest until he can get what he wants. Responding in kind, the blonde demands to receive something very important before she does anything in return. It doesn't work under other conditions. All the future Duchess asks for is a changed attitude towards her person. So far, things are not as smooth as they could be. Now that the lady has become the wife of the Duke and Monazalt herself, she should be treated according to her status and nothing else. Being treated as a legal spouse will be quite enough. Husband and wife should respect each other, even if love is completely absent. First of all, the brunette must stop allowing rudeness, because if the attitude does not change, then people will not take him seriously. All this must be true, because the lady is the beloved before the eyes of others, just like the young man himself. If the hero says that he cannot satisfy the request, then Chariot will also cease to show him any degree of respect. Relationships should be built on reciprocity. If you fail to do what you planned, the marriage will fall apart very soon, even according to the contract that was drawn up. Everything will change, but otherwise the lady is not obliged to do what she does in advance. There is always an option to refuse. Turning away, the hero notices the fact that the symphony is a little strange. She finds herself thinking about the movements and how the guy feels better when his hair does not cover his forehead. The young lady doesn't understand why she still thinks about such things. Turning away, the maiden decides to simply continue observing the scenery. After a while, the man asks Milady if she wants to be addressed that way. She only laughs lightly in response when she hears it. Respect for a lady is a manner characteristic only of a gentleman, even if the guy does not want to admit how well he behaved. Much better than it was before. It's impossible to believe that someone likes this, but in fact, it's just the truth. At first, it will seem unnatural, but over time you won't even notice how everyone will get used to it. It will be easier than it seems. Half an hour later, His Excellency is called. The carriage wheel has broken, so the couple can walk in the forest for a while. This is how the heroine first walks around the trees in complete silence. The young man notices that his friend never told how she defeated Fezarn. Looking at the brunette's impatience, I want to laugh again. He insists on telling me over and over again, even saying, "Please!" A woman's strength has nothing to do with magic. Everyone knows that the teardrop family, like all known genera, has a long history. Everyone has their own legend. The coat of arms of the symphony family depicts fairy wings, and there was once a lot of information and rumors about them. The power that the girl possesses is the same one that comes from fairies. To be honest, it's a little strange because she was adopted. Even true family members do not have magic. They unanimously believe that information about ancient forces is just fables that do not deserve attention. In the end, this is still more than just a legend. Strength helps strengthen the family's position and move forward successfully. If everything Chariot says is true, it will be a murky story. The question begins from the moment that the lady received abilities at all. The baby reread all the old books that were kept in the mansion. As a child, she thought that these were all fairy tales, and still dreamed of mastering magic. The lady hoped in her heart that if she managed to revive antiquity, her father would be proud of her. But when this happened, for some reason the joy did not come. Instead of praise, the beauty received a severe reprimand for the first time in her life. The Duke, who had always praised the girl before, scolded her. Then the lady did not yet know why, but now she can understand him. For a man, it looked like a circle of ancestral heritage that did not belong to his daughter. Monazalt doesn't think that power came only from books. The heroine has already explained everything, but when something bothers a guy, he can't really concentrate. We are talking about the family necklace Fairy Tears made of several hundred diamonds. The thing is very expensive, but has no price because it is a relic. Once upon a time, Charietta used a summoning spell on that very necklace. It turned out that with the help of the thing, it was possible to summon a fairy. The spell turned out to be real, even if the beauty certainly did not expect it. No one had ever tested it in action until the symphony. Then you immediately want to know where that fairy is. The young man hears about the lady in the past tense, which is quite strange, because she disappeared. The girl did something stupid, even if it is normal for the future. By making a choice, she lost her old friend, but at the same time was able to avoid tragedy. You can tell by Monazalt's face what he's thinking about. In battle, the powers that the beauty possesses are, unfortunately, completely useless. The lady still defeated Fezarn, however. If the fight had continued, she would have failed. It's true. The reason the man declared defeat was because he felt a sense of failure because he had no intention of killing in the first place. Because of everything, the guy let his guard down. The lady extends her palms, which are left on the hands of the brunette opposite. It seems they still don't believe her, although that could be better. If brush cannot do what it is intended to do, then the best option is to see everything with your own eyes to make sure. A moment later, the young man is engulfed by strong plant stems that branch upward, trying to tie themselves in a knot. The hero cannot escape, but a good idea comes to his mind. This ability will help with growing vegetables and possibly fruits. If you try, Charietta can make even flowers bloom. They grow quickly, but unfortunately, they fade just as quickly without warning. Elf magic is, of course, a big name for a childish thing like the one shown to the young man. It was a little different when it was a long time ago. Most elves are no different from mischievous children. They are at the same stage of development as adults, but do not forget about joy. The blonde doesn't quite understand what's wrong. It seems that the young man was disappointed, or even, rather, surprised when he saw this with his own eyes. The brunette could not think that he would so directly see the secret that would be revealed to him without any concealment. A wife should trust her husband first. The more a person hopes for something, the more disappointed he is when he finds out the truth. It wouldn't be nice to brag. In any case, the essence of the deal is to sell even an ordinary stone by advertising it correctly. The woman is not a fraud. even if some people believe that this is in no way true. Unfortunately, nothing can be replaced. To build a trusting relationship, you don't have to sell anything. It's worth learning more about each other, step by step, even if it takes time. Sighing, the brunette turns away. They have already managed to reassure him beyond belief, although, in fact, this is not the best option for how to conduct his business. The girl should be worried about small moments, such as the dissatisfaction that has arisen, which cannot be prevented by the Duke. There is no point in relying on his excellency either. Over the past minutes, the couple has become very close and now stands almost next to each other. Most people look away if they have to make eye contact, but that doesn't work in this case. Obviously, the lady is hiding something. The blonde looks the most like someone who is hiding something under a layer of secret. She admits that she cannot tell the whole truth at the first meeting. The girl is just trying to say that if she is trusted, she will never betray the one who made her life better. You can say anything you want. In the case of the Duchess, everything will be completely different. They don't know her past, but she doesn't want to be like those who have already betrayed her in the mansion. If the Duke nevertheless decides to betray, then the beauty's life will simply be over. She won't be able to stand it. The brunette sighs. The words he just heard didn't quite sound like he'd reached out to him for help so quickly. The woman does not want to seem cowardly, but she thinks logically. This is her last chance, and if nothing works, it will be the end. The servant hurries forward to His Excellency. He himself did not notice where the gentleman was, so he had to spend time searching. The knight was unable to change the wheel, so he will not be able to ride the carriage any further. You will have to transfer your things on horseback and walk, because this is the most adequate option. For the girl, this will most likely be a very difficult road, but in any case, she does not have any choice that would be given just like that. Horses cannot withstand the frost of Monazalta, so they have to move further simply on foot. There is still no choice. Looking at the woman's red face, the hero can say with confidence that she was freezing, even if he says that she is tolerable for now. In fact, the beauty was simply not used to the northern climate, since she lived all her life in the capital, in peace. The couple still hasn't crossed the border, so it becomes clear that things will only get worse. Taking off his coat, the Duke asks him to put it on. In this case, the young man himself will be cold, especially since the overcoat will drag along the ground and may become frayed. With the girl's height, no matter whose clothes she's wearing, this cannot be avoided. But this does not mean that something needs to be changed immediately as soon as they say it. It will only get colder, so the brunette still offers to do as he asks and put on a coat. Not intending to start a conflict, the beauty says that everything is fine. The man feels warm even without clothes because he's warmed up. Things are transferred to the reindeer so that the horse goes to the capital. For now, you can rest, at least for a while. The beauty comes closer to Fazarn to ask what a deer is, because she has never heard anything like it before. In the capital, people usually ride horses. It's so cold in the region that the rest of the animals can't stand it and freeze, which I don't want to happen. The blonde continues his friend's thought. They tame deer and dogs, and then harness them to sleighs for better travel on the north side. Mahlers points to the cart, which looks absolutely wonderful. It was she who was called the sleigh. What he saw was even a little breathtaking. Coming closer, the lady asks permission to pet the baby. The animal is very sensitive, so you should be careful. The deer looks impressive. Mahler says that even many men praise them for the strength that is concentrated in them. The blonde offers to fit one as a wedding gift, but Fazarn asks to ignore him because it won't help anything. His Excellency appears behind him, glaring at the servants. The boy immediately says that there is no point in anything. The young man reasons what he says as he once saw the hero training and he was in great shape. In order not to embarrass the couple, the knight drags his friend along with him, who may risk saying even more unknown things, risking his position. As soon as they leave, the hero asks for forgiveness. Then he promises to have a good talk with the one who constantly speaks without thinking. In fact, Mahlers did this through no fault of his own. The beauty finally cheered up, but it was all thanks to the deer. Smiling, she asks more about the sleigh. The cart was made so that people could be carried in it. Different sleds are made for different purposes, which means you can make alterations if you wish. If they are so convenient, they must be hard to get. But as it turns out, in Monazalta, every family has their own transport, which helps in the snow. They are so common that children who have just learned to walk are immediately taught to carry them. This is a small model that trains. A plan begins to form in the girl's head. If there are so many people in Monazalta, then there are some interesting things that can be done. The man doesn't understand anything at all, so he asks in bewilderment what we're talking about. I would like to understand more, but obviously this is not possible. Finally, the blonde arrived in the northern lands to the castle of the Duke of Montezalta, which she wanted so badly to get into. Pointing to the entrance, the young man says that they should quickly get inside. Looking back at his wife, he wonders if she froze while they were driving here. Winters in the capital are not as cold as in the north, and this will never change. The area is endowed with favorable living conditions. Local residents do not value their city at all, which can be transformed. It was also clear from Mercy's behavior that she was one of those who behaved this way. The hatred of the people living in Montezalta is especially great, especially towards outsiders, who rarely come due to the cold and slight fear. His Excellency has already returned, so the butler meets them. Even if there were problems along the way, it was better than looking at the vile faces of the imperial family. In any case, the old man is glad that everything is fine. The man immediately notices that he is starting to grumble, so he warns him to stop. First of all, the hero must introduce himself to his wife. His name is Aiden, he is the head butler, and is in charge of running the castle. The girl is very glad to meet you, and says her name too. We've already heard about it. There is no need for formalities, because you can contact them first name or whatever is easier. Obviously, the couple didn't have time to eat dinner since they just arrived, so Aiden promises that he'll give everything to the chef to prepare the food. Besides the meal, there is something even more important. The lady should take a bath immediately. She's been on the road, and she needs it. The hero says that he prepared everything in advance. I wanted to do this because it would probably be disgusting for the lady to be in such a place. The lady knew that no one liked that the Duke's wife was from the capital. Now the residents will have to endure the cold almost on a daily basis. Such a trifle cannot stop the symphony. From this moment on, the young lady begins life with a clean slate, as she planned from the very beginning. The procedures took quite a long time, but when the heroine entered the room, she immediately ran into her husband. Charietta did not think that Brush would arrive at her premises, who seemed to be in his chambers, considering that it was already quite late. On the one hand, the thoughts are correct, but on the other, the room also belongs to the brunette. He wants a fairy tale exactly what the beauty is thinking about. For a husband and wife to live in the same place is a natural phenomenon, and even in the capital, they do approximately the same thing. They are no different. The man left early, so the lady drew her own conclusions. As it turned out, Monazalt went to the bathroom in the training room to show respect. If the girl only knew how everything would turn out, she would at least dry her hair before going back out. Now this makes her nervous. The girl herself proposed marriage, but if she is uncomfortable, then the hero can prepare a separate room for convenience. Everything is fine. Of all the duties of aristocrats, producing heirs is the most important, so there is no choice in any case. Since the couple got married, just sleeping holding each other's hand won't work, that's for sure. The beauty was ready, but obviously not completely. Brush asks not to force yourself if it doesn't work out. The heroine turns away, saying that she had never shared a room with anyone before, so she was confused. Now the spouses should live together, so they will try to get used to their company so that in the end, they both become comfortable. The hero notices that the girl is too thin, which means she should gain weight. The guy, on the contrary, is in excellent shape. The young man's body shape is so excellent that there's nothing to complain about. There's a hidden meaning in such words. Looking closely into the woman's eyes, the brunette still says that a real lady should not make such comments when she is in company. Monasalt doesn't see the problem because, in his opinion, he didn't even talk about appearance. He thinks so, but another person may perceive everything completely differently. The only thing the lady asks for is normal explanations. It turned out that the thinness meant the cold, which is easier to survive when you are overweight. Thin people are sensitive to cold, so outside the blonde was shaking like a leaf. Now everything has fallen into its rightful place. Sighing, the beauty says that she has been noticing for some time that Brush is very easy to understand in the wrong context because he speaks in riddles. The whole problem is that the man is an incredibly kind person. The opinion definitely doesn't change only if you get to know the person better. The brunette acts strangely, but tries to wait until the lady approaches, and then takes off his glasses to give himself a more menacing look. It seems that the girl has already forgotten whose fault it was that there was that very scar on her hand that won't go back when rubbed off. The heroine stands her ground because she was lent her overcoat. Their first meeting did not go entirely smoothly, but there is one thing that can be said with confidence. The young man is cruel to strangers, but he is generous to his family and friends. This is what a true ruler should be. Monazalt is good at distinguishing between enemies and friends who cannot fall into the same category. Not everyone has such a gift. The kindness with which the girl was treated shows that she is considered an ally, and most likely, this will never change. It feels like there is finally a place to call home. The man furrows his eyebrows, asking why the lady smiled sharply. Looking down, Charietta sincerely says that she hopes that everything will work out with him. It's difficult to understand the train of thought when everything is exactly like this. The blonde thinks that she was not heard, so again, but a little louder, she repeats the same thing. They should have a good relationship. The butler prepared the menu. He apologizes that due to the rush it is rather meager, but still wishes you a bon appetit. As soon as Aiden leaves, the young man asks what his wife plans to do. She was already thinking about the potential of these lands as a good option. On the one hand, something has already become clear, but on the other, there are also unclear points that need to be studied in more detail. The lady is still thinking about how to transform plants that do not grow. She's already in the north, but everything will take a little longer. It would not have been possible to conduct research in advance because there was not enough information about Monazalta. Now everything has changed 360 degrees. The more information, the better it will be for the heroine and for studying the soil. The lady sees the future only in general terms, so this is necessary. Changing the topic to a more important one, Monazalt wonders when the future that the girl promised him will come very soon. According to the heroine, the future will come much sooner if she gets help. She knows what will happen, but she can't draw the line. The young man nods. He agrees to help, but in this case he will count on a good result that will not let him down. Brush noticed how easily Chariot answered questions because she seemed to fly between them at the speed of light. The reason is that the lady is absolutely confident in the success that awaits them. The brunette asks what they expect to receive from him. The girl is about to go to the library and also reminds that she needs a maid. A person must be born in Monazalta and know it well. Brush notes that the beauty is not shy in her demands, but she really doesn't see any problem. Information is the basis of everything. A man trusts his wife, so he will do everything in the best possible way. The heroine also needs one person to be found for her, and this is Pren Giotal. Until recently, he headed the Tekiana Trading Company. The young man does not immediately understand why the woman needed this particular person, and also has no idea how this is connected. For the past 5 years, Pren has worked as an intermediary for Duke Teardrop's daughter, but a purge was required to solidify the status of the new Chariot. Getting rid of several people will not be a problem for the Duke, since we are talking about such a famous family. He will do anything to save his name. It's strange that the girl wants to find someone who is most likely dead. Awareness of the situation is a little unsettling, and this cannot be hidden. That's because the man is not dead at all, but more alive than all the living. How he managed to escape punishment is a completely different story. The young man pretends to be dead and waits for the right moment to take revenge for what they wanted to do to him on his own estate. Just recently, the girl found out that an assassination attempt was being prepared on him and used this chance for her own purposes to save the skin of her subject. Everything went well, again thanks to the lady's ability to see the future. She could not pass by and forget about the problems. Brush won't need too much action. The symphony asks for people to be given to it so that they can bring Pren to the north. This man has outstanding skills as a merchant. He knows how to recognize the price of things and uses this to make a profit. The lady believes that the basis of any power is, of course, money. To run an entire country you need a budget, and to wage a war too. The hero looks interested. Every time someone mentions how conditions can be improved, he is happy because he wants it more than anything. Half an hour passed, but during this time the blonde managed to drink a little more than her norm. Her husband invites her to go on vacation. Getting up from her seat, the girl falls on the hero and immediately apologizes. She still can't stand on her feet because of her swaying body. Moments from that day that the lady has already spent in the castle flash through her head. Somehow, too much had happened to cope calmly. The lady wanted to drink, so in order not to deny herself, she did everything exactly as needed. It seems to have gotten a little easier. An hour later, the wife was already asleep in the bed where she was taken. Sitting next to him, Brush can only think about what kind of strange woman he ended up getting involved with. The girl is once again mercilessly overtaken by a nightmare from which she wants to escape. She almost cries, repeating her father's name. In front of the brunette, the beauty behaved calmly. But now, waking up in tears, she reaches out to her hand to get at least some support. Morning has come. Waking up, the blonde sits up in bed and is instantly surprised. because she didn't find anyone nearby. Realizing that there is no time to waste, the beauty is quite serious. You should quickly get ready and go about your business. Work begins on a new day. The maid was still allocated, and the lady knew that she needed a person who knew Monazalt well, but she was confused by the person himself. No one could even imagine that Brush would single out Mercy, who now stands opposite and awkwardly rubs the back of her head. She promises to serve faithfully. Bowing her head, Brown apologizes for the incident because she really didn't want to ruin the experience. She is asked to rise. In fact, now the blonde understands that it was wrong to scold the beauty from the very beginning, because now the relationship will be strained. You will have to earn forgiveness yourself. How things go further will depend on how the brunette performs in the future. Looking down from above, the girl feels like a monster, but she has no intention of becoming one. First, she asks you to answer questions. Of course, I want to take on any job, but the maid herself does not know whether she will be able to fulfill the requirements. The girl was sent to the New Dahlia because she knows the answers to the questions that interest the beauty. They will definitely work together. Opening one of the books and handing it to her interlocutor, the heroine waits for an answer. We are talking about the straw boots and spikes that are depicted there. Booties are worn over your shoes on snowy days, and cleats are a more effective version of the former when there is too much snow and ice around. Straw is not known to be suitable for slippery terrain, but the spikes allow you to walk on ice and climb on surfaces. The spikes are made of iron, which must first be obtained. Obviously, the second option will, of course, be much more expensive. Iron requires processing and special ingredients. Technology is welcome, but the question remains about the blacksmiths in Monazalta who can do such things. Perhaps what has been said will be wrong, but there are many who consider themselves masters. There is only one skilled artisan in the entire North. Martin Brown is the best, and he's Mercy's grandfather. She doesn't advertise him because he even forged the Duke's sword and is actually quite skilled. Since the man's granddaughter recommends an outstanding person without a doubt, then it is clear that he definitely knew how. It's worth organizing a meeting. First of all, you should find out more about the city. The lady has a good teacher, so it won't take much time, that's for sure. The servant reports to the man what his wife is doing. Lately, everything is as usual. She reads books in the library, goes for walks, and the like. It seems that Chariot has a lot of time on her hands. Or in Fezern's opinion, she is just an inveterate fraudster who is enjoying life. Surely there is something that this particular woman strongly believes in. Sebus, Monazalta's chief treasurer, is not happy. The young man does not understand what His Excellency is thinking about. He got married so suddenly that questions begin to arise about what is happening. As for Pren, everything is much more complicated. The knights found traces of him in the village. The Baron was very close. The probability that the guy is alive is really high, just as the Duchess said. Still, she knew what we were talking about. It would be better if Giotal were brought, so the hero asks to be brought to the castle, and he himself goes to meet Symphony. Opening the door, the man leads the woman inside to what was urgent. Standing in the room is Pren, who was finally brought to the place. The young man looks at the mistress in surprise and is about to say something when Tipperdrop rushes straight at him with hugs. The lady is very glad that her friend is in perfect order. It must have been very difficult for him with the way the last few weeks had gone. For someone who escaped, the man lived very well, which amazed even him. It's strange that nothing has changed, but only went uphill. A touching reunion took place, and even the husband himself noticed this. The girl immediately thanks him for the service they provided. It wasn't that hard to get what's in the room now. This is a good start to the success of their overall plan. Since Pren has arrived for the reconciliation, then there is no point in worrying, because they can finally begin the main stage of what will happen very soon. Noticing that the couple is holding hands, the young man only nods and turns around to leave. He is not entirely pleased with how things turned out against him. To be honest, the guest was very surprised, because he could not even imagine that he would have to rely on Monazalt. The girl nods, but they had no other choice. She took a small risk so as not to waste time, so she hands over a notebook. The lady worked hard all this time and tried to get as much information as possible about the lands in which they are located. After a few minutes of studying what he wrote, Giotal says it's interesting. He doesn't know if such progressive ideas will be accepted in a place like this. The path of pioneers is always one of the most difficult. I don't want to say something that won't be a reality, but the lady is no longer the Duke's daughter. If the plan that the woman has built fails, she will no longer be able to get off so easily at the expense of her father Tiardrop. The young man does not understand what happened while he was away. In truth, There are more than one or two strange things. The fact that the lady predicted the future and had a secret affair is also strange. The most important thing is that the blonde looks like a person who really wants to die as quickly as possible. Looking down at the mug of tea, the heroine sighs to calm down a little. She had a long dream from which she managed to wake up. In that dream, the lady held on to her father, who was not so supportive, and Pren himself died a terrible death that he did not deserve. When Charietta woke up, the same thing began to happen in reality, so fear enveloped her consciousness. It sounds stupid, but it's true. As hard as it may be to admit, the lady knows the secrets of Duke Teardrop's daughter best of all. I would like to get rid of such a burden. If bad rumors start circulating about the girl, they will immediately suspect the former Charietta. In the worst-case scenario, the blonde will be killed. The end will come when they also want to get rid of the ally who helped. This will be the most profitable. No matter how much the heroine wants to rest, she must become a person to whom her father and his family cannot do anything. She must protect herself. If the symphony does not want to spend its entire life hiding outside the window, it is obliged to carry out some reforms. If Geothal is going to continue whining like before, then the easiest thing to do is leave him behind and allow him not to take part in all this. Lowering his head, the blonde nods. He wants to know what the girl is going to do if he refuses, going somewhere back, but he is sure that there will be no refusal. Coming back to her chambers, the blonde found her husband there, sitting opposite. He noticed that the woman had been in the room for a long time. The couple talked longer than expected. If you want to say something, it's better to do it, rather than silently stare at the figure. Still, making up his mind, the hero asks whether Pren is really his wife's lover. At such a statement, the beauty stares in surprise. The young man, of course, is mistaken, because one could have suspected someone else, but certainly not Geothal, who had nothing to do with it. The man has elf blood in him and is actually much older than he appears, but you can't just reveal a friend's secret to your husband. Sighing, the blonde only says that she has certain preferences that she is never going to change. The girl does not like thin men, but muscular ones who are good with a sword and can easily lift heavy things. Those who are unable to lift anything seem unattractive to the lady. Pren didn't do anything, but he has no choice. In any case, friends have completely different relationships that will not change in any way even after time. The lady is strangely calm. Usually, when a strange man comes closer, there should be surprise, but here there is none. The brunette is not someone incomprehensible. Moreover, he does not regard his wife as a full-fledged woman who attracts attention. If the blonde had undressed, the young man probably wouldn't have raised an eyebrow, because he doesn't care at all. Others are not subject to explanation. It's the same with Chariette herself. She understands well the difference between personal and business relationships, so there is no point in worrying about trifles. Tomorrow there will be a lot to do again, so it's best to go to bed. Leaving Brush in disbelief, Symphony leaves. The woman did not want to talk about work directly in the bedroom, but she would really like to get an opinion on something interesting. The blonde thought a lot, and even drew up a work plan on how to build roads in Monazalta. There are only trodden snowpaths around. Obviously, they do not fully understand the specifics of the lands in which they are located, because in this case, they will not succeed. The lady knows that in the north there is so much snow that if you get distracted a little, you might risk taking a completely wrong turn. Nevertheless, the beauty proposes to build roads as if nothing had happened. Commerce has been developing in the capital for a long time, but in what way? Previously, canals were dug everywhere through which ships could transport goods, so Monazalt also needs improved transport. It won't be easy to do what you want to do. The young man simply thinks so, and therefore all the roads are in terrible condition, which does not change. The man is already tired of defending himself, so he simply asks what plan his wife has. She must have planned something to achieve her goal. Streetlights in the capital are a separate issue. People do not turn them on one by one, but do it en masse. In another city, all the lights are connected by a single system. Provided there is fuel, they all turn on at once. Putting aside the issue of lighting, you can decide what to do about transportation. Luckily, there is just what you need to complete the stage. In Monazalta, everyone, regardless of gender or age, uses a sled. It is enough to build roads specifically for this transport. Ordinary people will not be used, because they will only be given a job, which, on the contrary, will entail a lot of gratitude. In the north, due to problems since ancient times, there is not much work. Farming is impossible due to year-round frozen, infertile lands. All but those lucky enough to get a job in the castle were usually left to either hunt or work as mercenaries. Brush agrees to the options, but then asks the question about lighting that was just mentioned. Luck did not leave in this case either. There are many skilled blacksmiths in Monazalta who can get the job done. There are mana stones that are used as fuel. Duke Teardrop granted the girl land as gratitude for the fact that the lady played the role of his daughter all this time. From the outside, it may seem like just a picturesque place, but in fact, there is something valuable underground. The lands of Malath have rocks underground that create a flow of mana. It allows living beings to inhabit lands without problems. Apart from Charietta, no one knows the true value of the lands, so now no one can interfere by getting in the way of the goal. The Duke stands up and asks why he was not told about such an important detail from the very beginning, since now it is already a little late. If the girl had spoken, it would probably have been easier for her to come to an agreement, but now the person reacts differently. He calmly looked at the blood, but not now. For Charietta, just like for a man, confidence was needed. Now you can hope for help from your wife, because she knows that she can do it easily. The blonde promises that she will do everything so that no one regrets choosing her. A girl cannot let down an entire population. Pren drew a map on which roads and lights could be drawn, but the Duke did not like the place because it was dangerous. There are often avalanches in the place where the badge is placed. Monazalt thinks it's better to lay out the road a little differently, even if it means making a detour. Carefully examining the area, the maiden says that the map really needs to be straightened out. Corrections will be made immediately. Brush knows the lands better than anyone, so he can make some more adjustments that may figure out where to go. The man begins to point out places, but he is a little disturbed by his wife's hair, which falls on the map. Hyothal suggests tying your hair into a ponytail. Standing behind, the blonde brings the ribbon. Smiling, the lady enjoys, because it feels as if she has returned to her childhood. The Duke is going to continue as soon as the lady is free, but his face shows that he is clearly not very happy with something. It will be almost impossible to install the lights at once. First, you should get funding, and then start carrying out work. The finger points to the border of Monazalta and Orzenta. There is an agricultural region of another state there. There is plenty of food there, but it is strange that somehow the area will be connected with finances that will be allocated to another state altogether. The basic rule of trading is to buy something when it is cheap and then sell it when it is more expensive. Everyone knows what it depends on. This year there was a good harvest in Orzente, so the grain is selling cheaper than it usually goes on the market. You can use this. If everything is really real, then it's strange that someone would buy food at a higher price. The lady recalls the prediction. Monazalt will avoid tragedy thanks to the cold climate and profit from food supplies. The city has good conditions for storing food due to its special features. It's worth buying as many as possible before it's too late. It turns out that the first thing the state should do is prepare for future difficulties, which in the end will not be so noticeable. It won't do any good if everyone gets sick from eating, but you can also prepare medicine in advance. Charietta knows what formula to use. Just like with the grain, the lady is going to prepare a supply of medicine. The local climate will help keep even medicines fresh. They don't have much time left. To increase the productivity of efforts under restrictions, you will have to strain. The organization must be divided into several parts. The girl is going to set up a base in each village, which will be like branches of the company. People must increase in number too. Residents also need to rest, and things can be transported as much as they want. This is how you can build a course of action. Instead of having one person do all the moving work, you can divide it among several people. Large trading companies can operate because they are efficiently organized. Like a spider's web, they are divided into separate sections. All this looks like a rather clumsy structure. If something goes wrong, it can isolate one section and solve the problem. The map is used for markings with points. They will still make a small base in each village. Lanterns will indicate the way, and bases will provide a place to rest and store goods. The last stage remains money. Looking straight at the girl, the husband asks if 10 million Karens will be enough for them to do everything they have planned. If there is not enough, then the hero will add more, because this is not a problem. Obviously, the blonde thought that the budget was a poor state. The money was earned by the blood and sweat of subjects who worked hard for the good of the country. The number of mercenaries has increased. People do all kinds of dirty work. They have to earn money, being subjected to discrimination and humiliation. The young man is completely ready to invest money in the future of Monazalt, because this is the only way to improve the quality of life of ordinary citizens. At first, Charietta thought that it was just a superficial nuisance towards the capital, but things took a different turn as soon as she returned from the capital. It became clear that things were not as simple as we would like. After all, Brush's hatred also makes sense, and it didn't just happen. Thanks to such generous funding, everything should go smoothly. It is worth starting work as soon as possible. It's worth setting aside even more time to prepare the bases. In parallel with this, you will have to prepare sleighs for transporting goods and gather people for work. After shaking hands, the couple agrees. The question remains with trading partners. There will not be many such people, and these are not just the thoughts of one person. We will have to involve other countries. Traders are always looking for profit, so if they spread rumors that there is money to be made, they will bite. Obviously, the brunette isn't too convinced. He wants to get a lot more, which is not the least bit strange. Objectively speaking, there is nothing in Monazalta that would bring profit. And on this, we can agree with Brush without any options. The lands are full of valuable resources, but no one simply notices this because everyone is busy with their own business, which has nothing to do with the country. Pren said something earlier. It is necessary to attract the interest of people because even when they live, they do not have any feelings. The deeper the secret is buried, the more it excites the imagination. Everyone will think that they are in unknown lands and hope for treasure. In this way, it will be possible to get everyone interested in what they are experiencing, but it is believed that their expectations will not be met in the end. If there really were treasures, they would have been discovered long ago. This is not the end yet, because it is clear that something will still be discovered. In Monazalta, there is a treasure that everyone dreams of. Those who live in another country also want to get their hands on something like this. The man asks again in surprise, because he doesn't understand what's wrong and what exactly we're talking about. We are talking about ice, of which there is plenty here. Ice is a luxury in other regions that others cannot afford. Due to the climate, in order to do this, the power of magicians and magical items is required. The girl originally had a reason why she was so desperate to meet a man when she came to the mansion in the capital. The woman had no idea how to get to the northern city, and most people probably didn't know either. Even if there is something valuable in Monazalta, if there is no way to transport the goods, selling will be impossible, as well as buying. If there is a road, even people will come. The girl was not only thinking about how to sell something. Of course, to do this, it would be enough to create a company. Despite the fact that the beauty feels the importance of business development, she forgot about the main goal. In the end, everything is done to ensure that Brush ascends to the throne as quickly as possible. In addition to the trading company, the heroine plans to open a market. People living in the city will also contribute to enrichment. It seems the beauty wants to introduce a transaction tax. It's too early to think about it, but the idea itself doesn't seem terrible. Traders need to be exempted from taxes for a while in order to attract more. People may not want to come if they have to pay. The brunette doesn't understand how it will be possible to enrich Monazalt if people don't even pay. The idea itself seems absurd to him. There is something in the city that is absolutely necessary for any transportation, and that does not exist for people in the capital and beyond. The country will charge traders for the use of sleighs, which will be available for rent at any time. The idea doesn't seem bad anymore. The question, of course, will be how attractive Monazalt will be to people. The woman had already said that big changes were coming for the lands, only because they had built a good plan to help. The lanterns are doing well. That blacksmith turned out to be unusually skillful and quickly made lamps of the required shape. Each gizmo has already been tested, so they can be installed and used. The young man had never worked like this before. The lady is clearly pleased with the way things are going. It has never happened before that a hero has disappointed Chariot with the way he behaves. A lot of adjustments have to be made. This is probably because they are in too much of a hurry, but the beginning is always the hardest, because it will get easier later. Pren was surprised by the situation. People in Monazalta are savages abandoned by civilization, however. In reality, everything seems to be completely different. The words seem too frank, but in this case, it is never too late to change your opinion about someone. The young man is not obliged to pretend that he does not think in a bad way. Teardrop herself was also the same before she arrived in the city. When she managed to see those about whom there were legends, the girl realized that these were completely ordinary townspeople who had done nothing. There's a knock on the room. Surely Mercy came. As soon as the maiden entered, the mistress asked about the assignment she had recently given. Things didn't go according to plan again. Brown immediately apologizes because she thinks it's her fault. There's nothing to worry about because it's about someone else. The last few days were busy, so the lady was patient, but that was all. The blonde is going to a meeting with the chief treasurer. The heroine goes to ask for fixes. When a problem arises with a product, you need to contact the person who owns it. The woman arrived at the court where they usually train. People around are whispering because they see the Duchess in front of them. Sir Maelers asks why Chariot came to such a dirty place. Apparently she's decided to meet one person, but she's not saying who. The girl only came to ask something. The chief treasurer continually delays approving the budget. Shishi managed to screw things up. I've never heard the nickname before, but it's for the best. From this day on, the Duchess is more aware, so it will be easier. When it comes to money, a man becomes cunning and stubborn. He is so greedy that he won't allow him to spend even a penny in this castle. If you are wrong, you can lose half your salary. Complaining is useless, because this is not the kind of person who will listen to others. Shishi will not cut without reason. First, he will definitely find something to complain about, and then he will torment the person until he himself refuses. It's time to say goodbye to unhappy times. The lady must put the treasurer in his place, because sooner or later, this is bound to happen. Marl was about to take the girl to His Excellency, but she refused. After thinking about it, it became clear that this was not such a big problem. Marls was about to take the girl to His Excellency, but she refused. After thinking about it, it became clear that this was not such a big problem. The plan will be revised. The lady left, but negotiations between the knights increased. Many people think that the Duke's wife is wonderful. Monazalt appeared at the most opportune moment. The wife came about Shisha, but in the end, she turned around and left. The woman suddenly walked away. According to her, she will reconsider her action plan and then come back with new ideas and options. Cybus's office is shrouded in darkness as the man sits at his desk to work. He asks why the beauty came in the first place. Mercy returned back, so the girl decided to go and find out about everything personally. The budget is still under review, and it will take a lot of time. The woman does not want to give up. Her husband has already given the go-ahead, so the order of things should speed up, but this does not happen. This is precisely the reason. Everyone should understand perfectly why the matter will take so long. The blonde asks for a budget for several years ahead for her plan. Business requires investment, but the plan is no different from a waste of money. Shishi judges things too early without realizing it. Taking out one of the sheets and holding it in the lady's face, the young man says that the budget she asked for is 10 years of life in Monazalta. With such a simple fraud, the beauty took so many years of life from the country. The treasurer would rather add these years. To compensate for the money spent by the Duchess, people will have to work hard for 20 years or even more, and no one will save them even after this. Apparently, Cybus is not considering the option of increasing the income of residents. He believes that this is impossible, since not many will buy ice, and if prices are raised, there will be even fewer people willing to buy it. In other words, the man wants to say that this will not be a profitable endeavor. It is believed that no one will go straight to Monazalt for the sake of ice. Without trade, renting a sled will also not bring profit. If we take into account the quantity and prices, it is natural that nothing will come of it. The woman did not say that they would only sell frozen food, because this is just the beginning. The advantage of ice is that if something happens, losses can be minimized, and any shape and form can be obtained without effort. Even though everyone knows how to drive a sleigh, no one has used this experience in business. The same goes for the managers of the bases that will be built. Trading will be an excellent practice for them. There is no way to convince Cybus because he still thinks the prices for ice are too high. The price will be 1/100th of the market price. At this price, you will be able to sell the ice quite quickly. There is still a big risk of non-recoupment. The girl knows that the lower the price, the more they will buy. Ice is used only as an ingredient for dishes, which can also play into the hands of sellers. Freezing is an expensive pleasure. Only in Monazalta did people think of keeping food frozen. The cheaper the product, the more uses it will have. Noble houses will also be purchased. If everything goes smoothly, they will even take it into circulation from the Merchant Guild. They have many caravans all over the world. Ice is not durable and melts in high heat, but this, on the contrary, is for the better. Some countries have too hot climates. When the frozen food turns into water, traders will have to purchase a new batch. Of course, they will turn to Monazalt again. No matter how cheap a product is, one day people will realize how ineffective it is and stop buying it. However, it is not so difficult to extend its life. What you need is again in the north. Doesn't it seem strange that even without a fireplace, the difference between the temperature in the castle and outside is obvious? The girl has already figured out how to do something that others don't believe in. She continues to explain without giving up. There is no point in completely stopping the melting process. It is enough to extend the lifespan so that it can be used without any problems. The state has the necessary technology. There is no point in trying to refuse what is offered because this is a great opportunity to get rich. It seems that the man has not yet noticed that the Duchess came not for a scandal, but to make sure that he is the same treasurer who can quickly calculate everything. It looks like the guy was interested. The lady says that she is not going to spend too much because she is investing as much as the land deserves. Asking to review the project again, the lady nods. She tries to convince Cybus that she is right, because this is the best option for talking with a person. The young man knows perfectly well how the laws of Monazalt work and how you can use them for your own benefit. Chariot needs such a person. As long as a man is not bothered by a project on major matters, he can advise the beauty on issues of interest that will be resolved. Rushing forward, the girl says that they really helped her out. It is too early for such gratitude, so the hero refuses. The girl was looking for the Duke. This was not an urgent matter, but it was worth playing it safe, so I had to do it the way it was. The budget issue has been resolved. Upon meeting, Cybus turned out to be a very reasonable person, ready to listen to the girl and explain how things were. The Virgo thought that since the man is stingy and gets to the bottom of details, he will be very straightforward in the conversation. Her assumptions turned out to be true. It doesn't sound like a compliment, but the brunette is a very capable person. An assistant who knows the external situation in other regions would be helpful. The situation is very changeable. The girl needs people who will be able to think independently and achieve effective results. It would not be a bad idea to sometimes consult with a young man, who will most likely help in resolving issues that require a specialist. Chariot is free to do as she wishes, because this is not only the Duke's subordinate, but also hers, because they are in the same boat. The couple has already discussed several times how things are going with them. Husband and wife will always be equal, no matter how the ending turns out. In other words, the Duke still decided to trust the one he knows. He will not regret that he chose this path. Virgo doesn't have to try so hard on the facial expression she makes. At first, the man thought she was smiling, but then it became clear that it was just a habit. The beauty wears a mask of calm in order to keep everything under control in case something does not go as planned. It is unclear how the Duke knew Chariot's true identity, but it is a cause for concern. The girl was frightened by Pren, who asked what happened at work. Today, the lady does not want to meet with her husband one-on-one because she understands perfectly well that this, of course, will not end well. Hyothal asks to tell what is happening. Teardrop always told him about her problems. Having trusted, the heroine recounted the entire conversation, but did not receive the reaction she wanted. The young man sees nothing wrong with what happened. The young beauty has been trying to be an ideal for a long time, and perhaps is even looking for recognition from others. She wants others to notice her. Agree or not, there is no choice. They are no longer in the Teardrop Mansion, so the girl believes that she has no one else to prove that she is right. Virgo still sees that same dream. She is unable to forget him, and no matter how hard she tries, nothing comes of it, even after a while, already in another country. The heroine herself does not notice how she again finds herself in that very place, but the man was somewhat right when he said those very words. The beauty pretends to have everything under control and tries to shine in public, but nothing helps because there are too many thoughts in her head. Pren understands Chariot's feelings, so she apologizes and asks her to take care of herself. Don't take on too much. If it comes to extremes, a man can leave his girlfriend. There's nothing wrong with asking for help, and that includes Brush himself. The young lady really hides her emotions very well, so it's hard to notice when something is bothering her. She is not averse to getting along with her husband, since he is not that bad. There can be nothing but friendship. You don't want the relationship to go too far, so much so that it would be impossible to stop it. Unlike a contract, where clauses will be respected, feelings are quite changeable. There is no point in being too attached, especially in such conditions. In addition to all this, the man does not even see a real woman in his wife. It's time to prepare for the next step, so it's worth getting out of your head. While the lady is looking through everything written, the hero promises that he will bring a blanket, because it has begun to get quite cool outside, which, of course, will not bring anything good for health. After a while, there is a knock on the room. The lady asks to come in, saying that it took much longer. There was no point in even knocking, after all, they were friends. Obviously, Pren has returned to the old shows since he is behaving so strangely. The girl simply doesn't see any other options why this happens. Her husband appears in front of her and remarks that it looks like the friends have known each other for a very long time. The hero said that today, the beauty is resting there. The blonde was caught, but there is still no choice, because she is left alone with him. There are still unfinished matters that are important. The young man promises to help. He cannot leave his wife all alone with problems that will simply consume her alive over time. Silence hangs in the room. It's becoming too awkward, or so it seems only to the girl herself, who is so worried that she can't take it anymore. The office is very quiet, which makes me a little embarrassed. It's night outside, so it makes sense why all this is happening. The girl seems to be worried about that recent incident. She shows the same fake smile that she thought she could get rid of. Perhaps it was a simple gesture of gratitude. When a lady tries to restrain herself, the corners of her lips rise a little higher than with a normal smile. Blushing, the blonde tries to defend herself, saying that therefore it is impossible to judge the mood. But it turns out that it is still possible. After a couple of minutes, I want to be more angry than to be embarrassed just because of the things my husband says, standing one step away from the beauty and preventing her from doing her work. The young man is not trying to condemn the symphony, but in fact, everything looks like the opposite. He himself doesn't know why he keeps talking about the same thing. I want to make sure whether the words that were spoken earlier are true. Now, even Brush begins to trust his acquaintance, although this was not the case before. The joint business has just started, so it seems too early to draw any conclusions about what their relationship is like. The young man changes the subject, pointing his hand at the glass. The heroine should have at least tried to look outside to see all the beauty of the winter city. Lanterns appeared on the street. They can go to the village together, because sometimes it will be useful to take a walk in the fresh air in the company of a friend. There is a pause of silence, and it seems that Chariot does not want to go anywhere, but this is not so. She would like to personally check all the changes. It's time to go back to the room. Teardrop finds it hard to believe that her Grand Duke could have such rough hands from working with a sword and more. Turning over his wife's palm, the man carefully asks if the beauty's hand, which should have already healed, hurts. That's not the point at all. In fact, the beauty was just confused by how different her palms are from Brush's palms, both in size and in other parameters too. In fact, nothing compares to the pain that the heroine experienced. A fake smile appears on your face again, which makes you feel disgusted. Virgo doesn't understand at all how the brunette distinguishes each of her facial expressions. The fact is that Symphony has long been accustomed to hiding her emotions, and now does it automatically. It's not so much a habit as it is part of a girl. Everyone said that the lady of the teardrop family should be like a beautiful flower growing in a greenhouse. The beauty was an obedient dummy. Trapped as the Duke's daughter, unable to live as she wanted, she suffered greatly. Even though my father did not do this out of good intentions, he gave the best. Teardrop's actions are no different from a child playing with a doll. The girl is definitely not suitable for the role of a simple replacement because she deserves much more, which, of course, she will achieve in her life. The woman herself knows everything. You shouldn't tell her the same thing, or rather, something that she has already heard before. She is angry at the behavior, or perhaps at herself. If so, their conversation will end on a pleasant note. It seems that the lady does not fully understand how valuable she is. She's being deliberately pissed off. The Duke seeks a meeting with his former chariot. From what she heard, the lady who had aroused the interest of the capital's nobility with her appearance had not shown herself in any way since her debut. It is logical that in a bad situation, they began to look for the symphony. If talk was spent on a blonde without getting anything in return, then I wouldn't look now. The conversation leads to the fact that the girl can, without a twinge of conscience, hate the ducal house, which ruined her fate. It's better to understand your emotions than to bottle them up. In any situation, the lady justifies the Duke. In the beginning, everything is as it is, but over time it becomes a little easier. The young man says it's all so simple that you want to believe it. The girl no longer wears an overcoat in the castle, which the man noticed almost immediately. The Virgin still burst into tears, and her inattentive husband did not even offer a scarf. The young man stood still and looked at the tears that flowed. The next morning, the lady woke up in her bed. She didn't even understand how it ended up there, but after a while her memory was restored, along with the events that happened. The girl opened one eye, pretending to be asleep in order to follow the figure of a man who was putting on a shirt. She seems to have been spotted because, leaning over, the brunette asks if she liked the spectacle he was given to watch. The girl doesn't see a real man in the boy, so she can watch as much as she wants. This is not what she had in mind, but she still has no choice. Since the heroine has woken up, she can immediately get ready. It's cold on your face, so you can wear something warmer to keep warm. Virgo says that she still won't go because she can't be in the form in which she is now. According to the hero, she is wonderful as always. The only noticeable negative is that the face is a little swollen. It may be unpleasant for the interlocutor when such comments are made. With these words, the man said that no matter how she dressed and no matter how the beauty looked, they would not pay any attention to her. She's not the type to dress up, but still. Virgo doesn't listen while she puts her hat on her head. This will be her first meeting with the villagers, so it's worth making a good impression. It won't do any good if people remember the Duchess as a tearful person. It's worth saving your reputation. There is no other choice but to listen. While the couple is alone, there is no need for the attribute. The hero takes the thing off his head, saying that he likes green eyes. The girl is not cold, even if they are already outside. The picture in your head becomes reality. Still, the city looks a little different, not as usual. The young man himself has doubts. Let the beauty say that she sees the future, but it is difficult to believe in such a thing. Looking at the picture, it becomes clearer, because for the first time Mona Zalta is so animated. There is not much joy in a place like this, because there has never even been a harvest around. The cold is too terrible to deal with on a regular basis, a land with ferocious monsters where only warriors survive. There really aren't many things to do in a place like this, because that's just how it is. Every day, residents fight hunger on their own, and in the best way possible. The future is unknown, because it is not clear whether the day that will be tomorrow will come. If you die in battle, you will be able to find yourself in the lands of warriors. People in the city are not afraid of death for this one reason. The young man's father died honorably in battle, becoming a pawn of the imperial family. He went to the battlefield for the sake of those starving from the lands, dreaming of the lands of warriors, but the city was not even compensated for his death. The lady always knew that people in the lands were used as improvised means, but she did not know that everything was so terrible. In the end, there was no way out. Brush asks not to make such a sad face. The lives of the Grand Dukes of Monazalt are quite similar. There is no point in looking for sympathy, because it is not necessary. The hero tells simple facts that have to be filtered and nothing else. He understands that this is the best option to remain without sadness. The maiden noticed that the reason why her husband wants to become an emperor is not so majestic. We can say that there is only one option. The ruler wants to save his people from hunger. When the girl said that the lands had potential, the young man thought the lady was crazy, but now his opinion has changed. The fact is that the couple lived in different conditions. They couldn't change or taste life in another city, but now it's a reality. If they were both in the capital, the man would be the one who could come up with something that the native beauty had not thought of. Everyone from a different country looks at obvious things from a completely different angle. The girl looks at this place differently, so everything works as it should. Martin Brown interrupts the conversation. He couldn't believe what he saw before him, but almost immediately ran to greet them. The woman wanted to check on the man upon arrival, but no one knew that they would meet completely by chance. They are no longer in the castle. The Duke did not know that they had become so close. There are no problems with production, because the lady provided the drawings, and thanks to the cold protection technology, everything turns out just fine. You can trust Martin because none of the installed items have broken so far and serve faithfully. Virgo is happy that everything worked out. There is no better blacksmith than Martin, and therefore his work hastened the preparation. The man suggests visiting the forge. We have already made a huge number of lanterns, and by the end of the week we will be able to finish even more. Work is the best cure for boredom. Brown was unable to show his abilities for a long time, so now he is more happy than anyone else with how things are turning out. After speaking, the hero suddenly reaches into the chest. He knew that the lady would come sooner or later, so he prepared something important so that he could give it as a gift. At first I wanted to give the package through Mercy, but then the man decided to give the gift in person. You can open it right away. A small dagger for self-defense was wrapped in paper. In places like this city, people don't walk around without weapons that might come in handy. The knife is small but sharp, so at the right moment it can save someone's life and will never let you down. If you didn't like the thing, you could leave it, but the lady is happy to receive the gift. She showers her acquaintance with gratitude. If a woman needs something, she can always ask for help from those who care about doing their best. You can't tell from Martin, but he's pretty reliable. The guy shows off his muscles under the pretext that this is his strength. The hero is not only well-built, but also very talented. The Duke notes that this is yet another boast, which is completely out of place. A talented person can say something like that, although the brunette is not sure about it. The young man had never seen reliable people boast. The couple had already stayed long enough in a place where they definitely stayed. Very soon they should leave, but it seems that the lady does not want this. The girl wants to look at a lot more things, and if her husband doesn't mind, they'll stop at the forge, which she doesn't want to leave. If the hero is in such a hurry, the beauty may be left alone, because obviously this may be the best option. The young man says that although you can't tell from him, he can quickly take the girl back to the castle when the woman wants to go back. The man remarks that the girl is too thin, so they could have lunch and then go to the castle together as soon as the time comes. The heroine has no right to refuse a tempting offer, so she simply suggests that her husband go home all alone. The mistress returns back to the man. He says that she must try the traditional boar, and her face seems to show that the offer is quite tempting. The Duke was about to leave, but realizes that it has been a long time since he tried the traditional dish. He has no right not to stay at least a little. Extending his hand, the husband offers to go together. This is the best option, considering the situation they find themselves in. Entering the house, the couple is greeted by Dorothy, who smiles welcomingly, as if nothing had happened. People are probably freezing, so the best idea would be to go inside. Martin is going to go cook a wonderful dish while the guests sit and get around a little, because it will be much easier this way. The lady will be left alone because the men are leaving. She sits down with Dory, who is making clothes using knitting needles. The beauty sews her own clothes. She truly has golden hands, which, of course, does not go unnoticed, although she believes that there is nothing special about it. The vest in the hallway was made by Mercy when she was young. In Monasalta, a lot is done by hand, and if everything works out, then it seems that this is the best option. Compared to other people, Dorothy has a lot more free time due to the fact that she stays at home almost all of her time. Charietta has no talent, so she finds it interesting to watch something like this. If a lady tries, she will be convinced that it is not as difficult as it seems. The girl promises to give a master class as soon as she finishes. She has to cut the threads in 2 places, and she asks if her friend ever sewed. The woman is going to demonstrate that the heroine follows her in her tracks and simply repeats it as it is. Trying to do something, the lady asks what would happen if Brown could make money by making clothes. She wants to know how many people are needed for this. The only thing they will wear is aristocratic outfits. This is not something that all seamstresses can do, because only a select few are given something like this. It would be great to make money, but it's unlikely that many people would want to wear such clothes. It would be more profitable to sell fur and leather, but for this, you would have to catch the animals yourself. You won't earn much by selling such products. Because of this, instead of being hunters, young people become mercenaries and soldiers. Even if the profession is dangerous, they still go there. That is why the woman is glad that Martin is working with His Highness. Dorothy's husband still loves Monazalt. The girl missed a lot because she lived in this house without any hopes. This city raised a couple, so all that remains is to be grateful until the very end. I managed to live a happy life in this place. Simultaneous love and hate is a good description of the place. Everyone says they hate the land, but they can't leave for their own reasons in their hearts. I want the earth to be transformed. The world is not always arranged according to our wishes, but nevertheless, children should not live like adults. They are more reasonable and will change everything. Mercy will be upset when she hears this. When the girl talked about her grandmother, she introduced her as the greatest warrior in the world. Over time, the embroidery was completed. The guys had already returned with food, which they placed on the main table. At the end of the evening, Martin said that he would welcome the couple back for dinner. The girl was a little tired, but at least she was having fun. In addition to all this, the hero received his gift, but he believes that there was nothing special in this gift. A gift is a gift, but Lord Brown said that the girl is now a manifestation of the Monazalt that exists. The girl's surname is now also the same as that of the Duke, who is the most important here. The beauty's name also includes something similar. The blonde thanks for being invited along, and she managed to get out to talk with the rest of the residents. This is not something to be grateful for. The heroine remembers her past words. She said that she was going to use the man as much as possible for her own purposes. Now the lady is retracting her words. At first she thought so on the grounds that her husband would be the future emperor. She could have risen higher in status. The lady no longer has the confidence that she can use people as chess pieces and then throw them away. What had to happen was done. At the sight of joyful people, the Duke becomes greedy, because he himself has not experienced this for a very long time. The beauty likes Monazalt more and more. She talks about the land on which not a single sprout can grow, which is strange for her husband. Even if the land seems unusable, it is still inhabited by people who deserve recognition for their bravery. The woman likes the local people. The number of traders willing to sell ice is constantly growing. If the statistics do not stop growing, then no changes are expected on the way to the goal. So far, Pren is the happiest of all. Selling ice has its limit in attracting merchants. This is especially beneficial at the time when transactions are limited, which will happen very soon. In order to prevent major changes in Montezalta's plan, it is necessary to limit the opening of borders. The city can trade by supplying goods abroad. The lady allowed only a certain number of transactions. It would be a good idea to start preparing for the last step. The blonde wonders if what she asked for was found. The nature of Montezalta is untouched, so it was easy to find. It couldn't have happened without the help of the guys. However, success was achieved. Pren is in that place almost all the time. If the heroine had been present, it would have been even better. So far, everything is going well, so she thanks her friend for his help. First, you need to assemble a team while the blonde finishes exploring the city. The main thing is that there are no problems with your back and sled. The young man briefly outlined the dream, which became a story only recently, and the answer had already arrived. The girl is interested and wants to talk. An appointment will be made as soon as possible. Chariot asks about Mercy, but she hasn't returned yet. The woman asks to contact Brown and Cybus, and if possible, arrange a meeting with both at the same time. The blonde is about to leave, but finally says that he personally monitors the Duke's actions so that something doesn't happen by chance. The lady already knows that they are looking for her, but if at least some information is known, the best option would be to tell everything as it is. The behavior on Teardrop's part is very different from the future described. Major events will remain unchanged because after the death of the prince, a second one will take the throne. The Duke has been mentioned as a possible candidate for the throne, but taking the place is not so easy. Chariot apparently wanted to become empress. The man hoped that his daughter would become the true successor of the family. Even before the beauty's death, the position of queen was vacant. Nothing will stop the girl from becoming her until the Duke gathers all his strength. The man hands over a notepad with the necessary information written on it. We recently found out about it. Not believing what she sees, the blonde realizes that the lady of the duchy is not doing a good job with the duties she was assigned. The current Chariot is in a situation where she needs to demonstrate skills, but if she fails, questions will arise about the achievements that were before. The Merchant Navy is a network run by the Duke himself. It was originally run by the Symphony, but is now owned by someone else. The highest achievement of Teardrop is the visual indicators of a woman's abilities. She said she was smart, but it turned out she wasn't. If the blonde's memory does not fail her, then it's time to propose a new venture to the lady. Everyone said she was beautiful because she had the blood of the Duke in her. No matter how hard a girl tries, a fake will never be able to surpass the original. If only father had found Chariot earlier, things would have been easier. The man shouldn't have lost his daughter to begin with, because now they can't even get along. Pren may think otherwise, but the heroine herself thinks that the right belongs to the Duchess. She deserves the right to control her own hands. When they both fought for leadership, the beauty never defeated him. Most likely, it was an unfair fight from dishonest people. Although the lady had not been in business before, her friend knew all the trends. She always smiled and offered ideas. At that time, the woman was afraid to look her friend in the eyes, but now everything is different. Perhaps the reason why the father is looking for his ex-daughter is because of her extraordinary ideas. If the Duke could give up his greed, he would be able to find another person who could replace Montezalt. The woman is going to simply observe the situation as it happens. It might even be worth investigating. If you put aside your thoughts and think logically, then there is a high probability that the words about falsehood were a lie. Father is not easy to please, and he knew it when he brought Charietta. There are not many factions that were large enough to cause the fall of the duchy. The young man can try to carry out the investigation he wants. It is important to find out everything so that there are no problems in the future. While Pren is investigating, he can also check some of the people who are written on the piece of paper. The woman has some doubts, so she would like to check something as quickly as possible. No matter how good Chariot was, she could not deceive her father on her own. Teardrop is difficult to get into because someone is behind it. Dorothy arrived at the castle. The road was not particularly difficult. She was called in to discuss something important about the clothes she was creating. The woman believes that she will soon need a lot of clothes. She'd like to borrow Brown's skills. The lady must have her own suitable seamstress, but she does not ask her to sew clothes for her. The best option is to open a studio. The blonde's goal is to expand the Montezalta market. The sleighs are ready, and the attraction of traders will soon begin. Dorothy had already heard everything from Martin. Running a clothing business in the north, where you need something warm, will be quite difficult. This is still quite possible. From now on, foreign sellers will be given the opportunity to visit Monasalt with a ticket. People from warm regions are not used to such terrible cold. They were not dressed warmly, but they would be comfortable in clothes that are oriented to weather conditions. Dorothy's facial expression is quite strange and difficult to read. Perhaps she doesn't like the whole idea to begin with. The girl has already thought of everything. If clothes are not sold out, there will be losses, but if it's the other way around, then there will be a lot left over. The fur and leather of Monasalt are not of great value, so it is better to import materials from Palatian, where livestock farming is well developed. After all, it will be easier and cheaper. The problem remains with finding people who will produce things. This is a multitasking job that requires many hands. Knowing every disadvantage that exists, it seems that the heroine is still not going to give up, so she will sell clothes. The brunette hears no, so she is even more surprised by what she hears. Clothes will be rented to merchants. In other places, this would be impossible, but in Monazalta, everything is still ahead, so you should at least try. Traders from other countries do not transport fur because it is bulky. As long as there is a restriction on transportation, this will be real. Merchants will not want to carry around extra goods, and in this case, from the point of view of others, renting clothes will not be so bad. Dorothy is still not entirely sure. If the Duchess wants to rent out clothes, she will need many different sizes to choose from. Everything will be possible if a single standard of clothing is created. If a woman produces clothes that are not according to ideal standards, it will still be better. In the capital, the nobles take their measurements. As a rule, ordinary people buy ready-made clothes and wear them because it is real. It remains to add information about Monazalta to the material. Smiling, the girl is interested in the brunette's opinion. There will be a lot of demand at first, but if we can maintain the level of work, there will be no problems. The goal is to maintain a certain amount of clothing. In the future, repairing worn items will also be a good thing. For now, things will be expected to be like this. The Duchess tells all this because she believes that Mrs. Brown is best suited. At first, this was not in the plans, but she spent time checking and adjusting. In the middle of the check, the lady came across a large number of casualties among the warriors. Looking at the number, the lady remembered her friend's words. The woman dreams that the earth will be transformed, so perhaps something like this can be accomplished. Children will live a different life. As usual, the beauty was faced with someone else's tragedy, because, as usual, Monazalt's people went as mercenaries due to lack of choice. That's why Charietta wants to expand opportunities. The child who dreamed of becoming a seamstress became a knight. This will not happen again. The decision to entrust the work to Mrs. Brown was the right one. There will be less aggression towards the Duke, too. Dorothy knew when the servant was young. Every time they talked about the battle, the maiden's personality did not remain aside. Virgo asks about those who don't like her. The capital lady will not be greeted with joy, but if Brush himself brought her, it will become a little easier. If there is nothing more to add, the man asks not to waste his time. Don't be too cold. Chariot holds out what they met for. Although Cybus grumbles, he does everything the heroine asks him to do. He is a little strange, but still a talented person. There is a plan for the year on the sheet. All the sentences that Monasalt told are very similar to each other. Initially, it was the port cities that naturally flourished, as they were the main source of trade. Perhaps a legendary merchant will appear. At the moment, the city's income is very modest, and it is used for reinvestment. It is for this reason that the beauty is thinking about letting several merchants inside. The current method is not the worst. Of course, interesting individuals need to be lured with tasty bait. The beauty does not want to reveal her secret so easily. Brush enters the room. He came in just in time, so now the third participant in the conversation. Time flies when the blonde talks to Cybus. She arrived about 2 hours ago. Mercy has only recently left because she has been bouncing between the girl and Mrs. Brown in the village lately. Pran went to deal with the rest of the business. A literate person always has a mountain of things to do. The young man looks a little tense. It may be better to talk, so if there are problems, the brunette should talk about them. Having straightened her husband's tie, the maiden released him. At some point, the man in front of her began to attract her. The man is a kind person, but he is simply afraid to show it. The best thing to do would be to make it a training session, even if the story is likely to end. At the same time, the girl is not trying to seem stupid. Regardless of who the guy is with, he is different and, of course, remains tall. This has nothing to do with the blonde herself. The girl only admits that she likes Brush, but she has no intention of falling in love. They say that relationships are won with great difficulty. With all this, they can disappear in one fell swoop, as if nothing had happened. All work can fall apart even faster. The beauty felt perfectly everything that happened. Cybus asks what the couple are doing. Spouses should be strong with each other, but it is better to leave this for later. The girl is going to tell about the bait. In fact, we managed to find a gold mine. Everything will depend on the amount of work. Perhaps, if taken seriously, this should be enough for a year or even 2. It will be enough to fill your pockets only. Unfortunately, according to the Duchess, this will not help. Monazalt is looking to temporarily transfer its mining rights to a third party, and for good reason. The country does not have suitable mining weapons, just as the people do not have the experience. This is not a mine with large reserves, so there is no point in clinging to it. Nobody understands what the symphony is going to do. According to her, it would be better to make noise about the fact that they have their own gold in the country. By concluding agreements with certain traders, it will be possible to sell your mining rights cheaply. All you need is desire. There's nothing more dangerous than human desires. The lady must have good reasons to do this. Instead of doing the wrong thing, the blonde will set the condition that they must use Monazalt's people as labor. They will leave behind debris after mining. Traders are unable to curb nature and will immediately break down. The girl is heading towards something interesting, but the husband noticed it earlier because he already knows his woman very well. The gold mine was a lucky find, but the heroine was trying to find something else, namely iron. Although the mineral itself is useful and does not require large expenditures, its production is regulated by politics. If the city has enough iron, this will guarantee help from the military, since weapons are made from it. Only the power of the military helped Brush become emperor. The army was called barbarians, but in reality almost no one could resist them. What developed around laid the foundation for the war. After all, it seems that the wife needs a powerful army, which she will receive. There is no need to be lenient. Weapons are not the only thing that can be made from iron. A conversation has already been held with Brown. The girl found out that it is also possible to dismantle the mine. He said that it is possible to develop even in this direction. If you go further and add Monazalt cold protection to the equipment, you will be able to create special mining equipment. As enthusiasm for gold fades, interest in Monazalt will quickly fade with it. The apathy that spreads will be a great opportunity that must be seized at the first opportunity. Brush seems to understand that they will deliberately pretend that nothing is working out just to pull off their scam. Currently, the Empire is in conflict between the Emperor's family and the Southern faction. Nobody forced Monazalt to make a choice because there was nothing there. At the negotiating table, people were just thinking about how to feed the hounds and when to use them. Few people will like the progress of the North. When the city sits at the same table with them, there will be those who want to hold them and trample them underfoot. The city is not part of the imperial family, and Orzent cannot win alone. If he gets angry for no reason, his plans will be ruined. No one would suspect the Monazalt if it crashed after a short takeoff. This is the perfect plan to catch the family off guard. As soon as the others lose their vigilance, the Duke will be able to fly even higher and fly further. A woman must understand what she will have to answer for later. This is no longer a child's game, so in the future, everything that works will be done. By following the plan that was intended, it will be possible to achieve the goal more safely than they can now. Until now, while the man watched how the girl behaved, it seemed that he was putting together some kind of complex puzzle. If the perfect strategy exists and can be implemented, it is like putting a puzzle together piece by piece. Brush should not be offended, but the meaning he said is not entirely correct, and it is simply impossible to say otherwise. The more Symphony thinks, the more the future will be different from what she saw. There are invisible restrictions that come into play. Looking at the hero's army from the future, the heroine expected that Monazalt would have high-quality iron, but it turned out that everything was different. Just like when discovering gold, there will be variables that cannot be accounted for. The girl does not consider her plan ideal and tries to make it better. The man seems disappointed. He looks like he has no choice but to admit defeat. The girl has been trying to concentrate for an hour now, but nothing is working for her. The smile, out of spite, cannot leave my head. Raising her head, the heroine suddenly gets scared. There is a blonde man standing in the room who, as it turns out, knocked more than once. It seems that it is difficult for a girl to talk about what she does not want. If her opinion suddenly changes, Pren is always at her service. The young man is in Monazalta just to help. Someday he will return back to himself, but for now he is trying not to think about it. Before leaving, the man would like to report on Charietta's case. Firstly, There is no evidence that the Duke is doing anything at all. Strangely, there was also a more unclear detail about one person from Teardrop's entourage. He had secret connections with the Emperor. They said that their goal was to make the girl a duke's daughter, and then an empress, lowering their level. The contract with the imperial family included Count Farah, who was already known. He was Python's uncle. Originally, her father was going to marry Symphony to Python, even if they never actually got along with him. In such a case, the union would protect the alliance and the current status of the duchy, and the man would become the next guardian of the country. Charietta returned, and so the marriage quickly fell apart before it even began. There are very few reasons for collusion. If the Duke's daughter becomes empress and disappears, the Duke's position will become uncertain. The one with the highest rank will be next. I can't believe that what's happening now will be over. The lady does not give up and asks even more questions. The blonde is still worried about something. The current Lady Teardrop may also be a fake, but this is not entirely clear yet. The girl herself said that she was a fake, however. Maybe this was said for fun. At that time, Charietta did not have time to check. If so, this will entail many consequences. It was for this reason that the heroine decided that it would be best to remain silent. If it turns out to be fake, then one day it will play into your hands. At the time, the Duke opposed Brush's ascension to the throne. He constantly referred to and insulted the tainted bloodline. The blonde is obliged to end her father as soon as possible, even if it is for the sake of Monazalt. The man visited his wife, who was again thinking hard about something. Standing up, she almost falls to the ground, but is supported. Part of the fault is that the young man frightened the beauty, but she also did this to herself because she was lost in thought. It seems that something is not going according to plan. It's a pity that you can't tell this to Cybus. Everything else is good, but you shouldn't advise resting, because the woman won't listen. I can't believe that the handsome man doesn't want to talk, worried that he might seem like he's nitpicking his words. If everything is wrong, the heroine asks to tell the treasurer about the rest, because sometimes the lady is very worried about him. She feels like she's putting a lot on his shoulders. The young man believes that the couple has become very close, especially recently. He wants to be addressed by his name too. Almost everyone young Symphony knows wants to be addressed by their first name and nothing else. This is not true for everyone, because a brunette is not one of them. The girl thinks he is special, but does not specify what she means. The Duke is the most powerful in the country, so no one would dare call a man Brush if he had a lower status. Married couples are equal. His wife doesn't need to justify herself. This seems to mean that a lady can call her husband by his first name. It's hard enough to ignore emotions, although it's stupid to increase intimacy with names. Still, deciding that it would be best to try, the heroine calls the young man Brush, and he immediately blushes, but tries to hide it. The beauty smiles slightly and laughs. She shouldn't think about this, but it's surprising that her husband has such a side. By pronouncing his wife's name, a man says what he thinks. She seems to be doing a lot better than him. The girl is uncomfortable. This name means nothing to her, and when she is called by it, it seems as if she is in someone else's shoes. A man with whom the maiden had known for a long time called them, and strange sensations appeared. Along with the name, memories of what had already been lost flew by. I don't want to experience the feeling of loss again. The heroine promised herself that she would deal with something like this, but she couldn't do it so quickly. Cybus and Symphony are walking along the road. You can work on documents day and night, but you need to look at the sun at least occasionally. If one could die due to lack of sunlight, the hero would have been dead for a long time. In order not to die, you don't have to look at the sun, and even Mercy agrees with what the woman says. Walking towards the house, the girl notices Mahlers on the roof, working hard on something, and immediately says hello. The blonde asks to be careful, but the young man claims that even if he dies, he won't lose anything, even though it's scary. Unable to stay in place, the boy flies to the ground, but lands softly. The lady was a little scared. A light skirmish begins between the treasurer. The blonde believes that he has found himself in another world since he found Shishi walking down the street. It's always good to replenish the skill flow where possible. Fezarn knows this, so he never misses an opportunity. In any case, the couple can be left alone. Clients are already waiting inside the house, where you just need to go inside to meet. The first person to meet the lady is Misha. A girl with pink hair rushes forward to hug her friend around the waist. Pren brought the baby himself. The man insisted on meeting her, and therefore, all that remained was to take her with him. In any case, they haven't seen each other for a long time. The girl was about to leave the forest, but the man stopped her, saying that she should wait for the right moment. The baby got indoors, and she is already better, but she is not used to the cold and does not like it much, like everyone else. The business belongs to the symphony, so the beauty was obliged to come. She couldn't sit and trust a puny guy. Caring is truly appreciated. Misha literally glows, promising that she is not going to be alone because they have a lot of plans. Cybus asks who this child is, which causes a strong reaction. This is the best pharmacist. No matter how much a beauty likes a man, you shouldn't swear at the first meeting. It would be better to calm your nerves. The guy is not sure if this is a good pharmacist because she looks like an immature baby. Judging by age would be rude. The baby promised not to get into trouble, and Pren himself reminds her of this. He has no right to reproach her. Squatting down, the lady asks the girl not to run into trouble. She hates to hear this, but it would be best to be patient until time passes. The rest will be completely fine even after a quarrel, but Misha can get seriously hurt, and because of this it is worth trying to avoid it. The elder in the forest is worried as usual. If the young man is going to continue this, then it is better to shut up immediately. The forest is boring and dull. The lady really wanted to go to the meeting, because as long as you have the desire, you should go out as much as possible. The girl looks up at the woman in front of her. It seems like something is wrong, but she doesn't seem to say anything. The blonde understands that this is a long-awaited reunion, but Cybus does not understand for what purpose this was done. Misha is simply an excellent doctor. The baby can do what a good pharmacist cannot do. Symphony brought her friend to show her, and so that everyone would believe in her powers. Stretching her hands closer to the ground, the girl says that everything is possible according to the script that was written to her. The ground is stronger than she expected. Smiling, the heroine promises that she will get down to business and try to do something, since the soil is so strong for growing. Since it's so cold outside, the blonde suggests going back. It seems she is no less worried about her friend. The Cebus comes forward, blocking the maiden's view. He asks what they saw, and it turns out it was a test for plant growth. Misha understands not only plants, but also soil. The importance of land is of great importance, no matter how you look at it. The girl has already begun studying to select the right seedlings. The treasurer doesn't know anything about this, so he doesn't understand how anything is different. First of all, you should look at the condition of the soil. This squirrel field in the snow can be colored completely differently. Now there are no crops that meet the monosalt condition, but it is possible to find them and change everything, at least over time. Anyone who has ever thought about the further development of the city knows about what is happening. There has always been hunger in the tragedies, which can now be eradicated. Treasurer can't believe that something like this is really possible. It's never wrong to try, even if nothing works. Even if the market develops, you need to have independent production to some extent. In the future, this will eliminate many problems. It is extremely difficult to get food in this place without outside help. Even if it takes some time, you just need to find ways to support yourself. If we can just find a crop that can survive the cold and grow, it will help prepare for the future. It is possible to achieve prosperity with the help of Shisha. The little girl frowned because she considers herself the only helper. The girl was sent to bed. They will see each other tomorrow. The symphony is incredibly grateful to Jyotal for coming. Everyone may have hidden intentions, so you should be careful. The young man promised that this time he would definitely take the girl to the forest. The young lady must understand that this is impossible. The only problem is that the beauty loves to make this possible for herself. Contrary to Misha's wishes, she cannot go to the places she wants. The consequences of stupid choices don't end well. The blonde is very worried, and it's noticeable right away. This is a child who has great strength, and it is never clear what kind of trouble might get in the way. In any case, for now, Misha is the only person who can help the city. More pressing matters and open questions remain. A full investigation into Charietta has not been completed, but a recently launched merchant shipping company project is gaining traction in the capital. It is said that tourist boats sailed along the canals. This is a new thing, because until now they only swam on calm lakes. There was an excursion in the capital. The maiden turned pale. She knows that there is also a boatman built there who sings well. There is good arrangement there so that it would be reminiscent of drinking tea on the water. Pren freezes with his mouth open. He doesn't understand how Teardrop's ex knew about this before she was told. This was one of the businesses that Symphony chose. If she had stayed at the estate, then she would have taken this option seriously. Perhaps this is a simple coincidence, but it would be difficult to call it exactly that. It was that lady who started it all herself. It is strange that the timing was not right for the project. Beauty wrote everything down in a notebook so they could just glance at it. The problem is that the heroine did not stay in the Teardrop mansion for so long. She doesn't know what to think about right now. This was an idea that even Pren was not told about. The girl always wrote everything down so that she could draw a line later. It would be strange to expect that Charietta, who has only recently arrived and is trying to get comfortable in a new environment, will figure out how to open the little thing. A woman may have an assistant who helps her, and he is more secretive. Perhaps thanks to him, the maiden was able to penetrate deeper. The request becomes clear. Hyothal should monitor future projects more carefully. There are simply no two coincidences. An investigation should be conducted into the maids who worked for the beauty. These are the ones who were with the lady at the TR Drop mansion. We'll have to investigate everyone, including headmaid Velvet. Considering what happened, they seem to be suspects. Brush, as usual, appeared out of nowhere. He assumes that the lady is tired because her face looks too puzzled. The man was freed quite early. The wife had already discussed all matters with Shishi, and this had already been reported. The young man seems to smell of soap. He was at training, so it would be wise to take a shower immediately before going to the room. The girl knows that Brush has not had any training until this time. The smell is still strong, which means he washed himself outside, which is strange. The girl appreciates care, but you shouldn't exaggerate. The right to use the bathroom in the bedroom belongs to both. Even if a guy pretends he's not, he's surprisingly nice. There is simply no other reason for using separate bathrooms, and there cannot be one, because it would be strange. There is no need to pretend that this is not the case at all. A woman knows that a man is not indifferent to her, first of all. The heroine doesn't mind sharing a bathroom since they already share a room. In any case, before she arrived, it was only the brunette's room. For now, the couple should live in separate rooms, at least for a while. A young man should not limit himself. Virgo called a pharmacist she knows, and she is afraid to sleep alone in an unfamiliar place. For peace of mind, they will sleep in the same place. The man asks how long this will last. She has a lot of fear, so it will be helpful for this to last at least for a while. Since this happened, the blonde will try to sort out her feelings for her husband. You won't have to pretend to be asleep for long. I had to get up early to avoid being looked at. Virgo will take this opportunity to put things in order in her head and finally understand herself. When it comes to the heart, things get weird. It's the first day, so they need to be careful. The girl is already leaving because she was just about to do this. It will be good for both of them, given what's going on. If the lady leaves, it is better to get straight to the point. She hopes that her husband is not angry with her for the decision that was made. The hero is more disappointed than angry because he was not warned in advance, and now it seems to be too late, despite how things are in general. The decision of the spouses to live separately should be a subject of mutual consent and agreement. But this is not the case at all. The woman cannot believe what she hears. She didn't want to offend Brush and just thought that he wouldn't mind too much or stand in the way in any way. When a couple lives in the same bedroom, it's a matter of trust. They just sleep together anyway, and the guy even uses a separate bedroom. The lady thought it would be more convenient this way. Moving closer, the brunette asks about what they are saying. If he is not sleeping, perhaps this means that there is permission to do what is forbidden. In the end, they don't do anything because one of them is against it. In any case, sooner or later you will have to do what is intended. If something does happen, it should not happen at that very moment. They are not able to raise a child because succession will come after everything has stabilized. You can do something like this just for pleasure if people like each other. The young man is upset by the fact that Symphony does not share her feelings with him. The girl is scared, although she tries not to show it. She cannot control herself in such exciting moments. Brush suddenly asks if Chariot killed Duke Teardrop. If this were so, the girl would simply no longer be in the castle, and no one would help her. Perhaps the man would have believed earlier, but the lady sees the future. Either this will happen, or the heroine has gone from blindly following her father to something else, since she left the duchy so easily. After all, the future that was seen was perhaps the worst. Even the maiden herself finally gave in. The hero cannot even imagine what the young lady had to go through, but one thing is clear to him for sure. That's all that can be said from what is visible. Husband and wives are equal. The symphony itself has spoken of this, and it is no longer in a position to be abandoned. No man would throw away a diamond. The young man is right, because the lady saw something terrible. She was betrayed by people she trusted and sentenced to death, and the sentence was passed on by her father. The lady knows this, but cannot let go. The first time is never forgotten, and for a woman, the Duke was the first to find her in the forest all alone. From the moment the man called the baby by name, she became Chariot. She does not remember the past until she entered the mansion. I had to relearn how to speak, dress, use a fork, and learn everything else. because there was no knowledge in my head. People can't imagine that a girl can read, let alone write. It seemed as if the power of speech would also be lost over time. The father did not abandon the baby. The first words she wrote with her name were his. At the beginning of life, there was always a duke who helped the beauty. The girl never even thought about finding her real family. It is clear that they abandoned their own child, so there was no point in this. Chariot had never seen a good ending in a relationship with another person. Considering the situation, it all seemed like a bad idea. The father abandoned his daughter, and the maids testified against it, as did the nanny, who was considered the mother, but who mocked the girl behind her back. As the Duke said, the lady is afraid of relationships. She is satisfied with relationships in moderation, and when they become close, she wants to run away. Symphony smiles easily, extends her hand and speaks casually, but becomes frightened and afraid when someone approaches her. Perhaps the lady never thought about it, but she should have. The man continues to do the same, although he knows about his wife's inclinations. Stepping back, the blonde assumes that she is simply being bullied. The young man was taken aback by such an open answer. The hero is really just showing concern, which is important. He also likes mockery, but when it's more like a light joke. To be honest, there is no point in being bad. The young man does not think that he is acting badly, so he is constantly trying to change somehow. The abandoned child was stupid. The hero doesn't mind, but he thinks that the lady will get mad if he doesn't shut his mouth and tries to say even more strange things. There's no point in trying to change knowing the lady will run away. She will continue to think about her husband even when he is not with her. To solve a problem, you need to think more about it and try to solve it. This is exactly what a brunette who understands this needs. Misha immediately noticed the exhausted expression on the beauty's face. She asks in concern who made the girl cry so much. Not listening to the assurance that everything is in perfect order, the little girl rushes to her suitcase to choose exactly how to take revenge on her offenders. A man who upsets a woman must suffer, but the lady asks him to calm down. The girl will not lie and is not going to deceive when she says that everything is fine with her. Misha cannot stop worrying, because by nature she is someone who will always stand up for her loved ones. But a girl can be close to her friend, and for her this will be much more important than anything else. She's always happy to see it happen. It's very nice of a girl to hear something like that, but the blonde didn't even do anything to deserve care. The little girl was about to say something, but froze. She has several taboos. The elder does not trust, so he casts some kind of restriction spell if you go outside the forest. The elf wouldn't do something dangerous, but something like this is important to keep the baby silent because her mouth won't shut. The beauty still cannot understand the reason for the elder's decision. She is not the only one who behaves this way, but for some reason, everything is not at all the way she wants. The puny guy has already snitched once. The lady understands what we are talking about. Shishi didn't do anything because that's actually normal within the confines of anxiety. The girl is serious about taking her friend to the forest because she doesn't belong in such a terrible place. The elder makes a big mistake. It's not the man's fault, but nevertheless they can at least help in some way, and instead of at least trying, they left them alone. The girl is grateful and appreciative of how things turned out. Initially, she could not even wish for such a thing. In the name of the forest, Misha will be on the beauty side for the rest of his life. She loves her friend very much, and that won't change. Of course, the lady is in a different position, and she does not need this. But this does not change anything in the feelings of the lady herself. The clan of the forest, known as the elves, are these forest clans that tell and live for several thousand years and actually exist. Some of the kids' representatives right in front of the symphony. If this were an ordinary person, the girl would not be as concerned about his fate as she is now. Everyone treats the girl this way because she is a fairy contractor, but the contract has already been terminated and she is no longer a contractor. The woman tries to say something again, but the restriction is still in effect. She promises to praise him upon arrival. Remembering the medicine that has already been mentioned, the little girl jumps up in bed. She just created a prototype that you can even look at. Extending her hand to her friend, she begins to say, "Here, I have finalized the first version that you asked for. I don't know whether you will like it or not. Even the contents of the bacteria bottles look a little different. I was able to try several combinations to create them. It wasn't hard. The red bottle was made from the prepared tincture that was described, with the addition of fresh herbs. The blue bottle contains dried herbs, and the green bottle contains concentrates. Everything matters, but it's not that important. The lady discovered that fresh herbs were more effective, that's all. The heroine prefers that most of the ingredients included in the products are fresh and has found an excellent place for storage. Personally, the elf recommends the option that was made from concentrate. Despite the trouble, she still chooses the best. If you want to use it fresh, you have to go through stages of preparation. It's better to cut them in advance and mix them. There shouldn't be any problems with efficiency. Plants themselves are afraid of heat. In fact, even if applied to the symptoms of the disease that the lady spoke about, everything will work out. The production of concentrates also requires equipment. The little girl already asked the man about this, and he said that everything would be possible. It seems we are talking about Cybus. Virgo doesn't remember his name, but she remembers that he looks like an anchovy with bulging eyes and is definitely not handsome enough. Not believing her ears, the heroine opens her mouth in surprise. She cannot come to terms with the fact that the beauty likes a man who is so scary. Throwing the jars in different directions, the baby is almost hysterical. She cannot give her friend to such a person. The blonde doesn't look at the treasurer that way. Rushing forward, the child also continues to clarify whether the friend definitely did not defeat that anchovy. It's high time for a lady to find a mate by human standards. If the time has come, then you have to find out if she has any man in mind. In fact, Symphony already has a partner. In human terms, this is a relationship about which, of course, you want to know as much as possible. Before telling his story, Teardrop asks him to swear by the forest that the little girl will not threaten that man after the story. The lady does as told, continuing to mutter something about how she would not have taken such extreme measures only if her friend had not gotten married in secret from her. Imagination or not, it seems that Misha doesn't like Brush very much. She's just not in the mood for what she just recently found out. Leaning closer, Pren wants to know why the child is in such a terrible mood. She was simply told that the lady was married, despite the fact that these were not terrible. I wish the beauty would grow up already. Just in case, Geotal will watch her so that she doesn't do anything terrible, just by mistake. Introducing Misha, Symphony says that she is working with plants and preparing a cure for the epidemic. The girl is also studying what crops she can grow in Monazalta. The young man wants to ask a few questions. The pharmacist will answer everything, because the faster he finishes the work, the faster the beauty will be free. Brunette has heard that there are plans to improve crop yields to suit the climate, but he wants to know what crops are being considered. The question is not difficult. First of all, improvement is not something you can do just like that. To achieve success, you need something with great potential. First of all, it's better to take a closer look at the apples, as well as what will grow in the soil itself. Potatoes are also a good option. We have heard more than once that people in the city are starving because they cannot grow crops. It is better to give preference to a universal bush. The idea is great because the land will be used. If we manage to resist natural disasters, there will be fewer losses. Next time, the apothecary is going to upgrade wheat and corn, as well as beets as some of the good options to choose from. Literally, the plant can be processed into sugar. This is a crop that the lady personally asked for because they need different types. If you only grow rhubarb, you won't get rich. Beets are much more expensive. With Misha's help, this will be possible to grow without any problems, all thanks to a girl who is very good at what she does. Still, this is a good option for when nothing works out. There is enough land in Monazalta that is not affected by the climate, so the heroine focused her research. What remains is a gold mine prepared by a network of traders. Very soon, the city will be crowded with people, and at this time they will continue to collect food and look for ingredients for treatment. There is a golden apple in the work started. As the rumor spreads, all regions and factions will seek to take what they have, but will not give up. A woman will not feed the eternally hungry hyenas, and when they turn on each other, Monazalt will be able to restore them from indifference. This is just the beginning. When asking Misha about things, she simply nods, saying that everything is fine. She notices that the ground smells strongly of iron. It smells very strongly of blood and rusty iron. The girl prefers not to communicate with such people at all, because they only get in the way. Those like them are always out for blood, and they are destined to have blood on their hands for the rest of their lives. You will never be able to wash yourself away from this. Most people ended up badly, especially since what was discovered actually smells like iron, and that smell doesn't go away. Shishi advises to listen with one ear and let everything take its course. The only person who doesn't smell like that is the child who arrived. The lady again says that she is glad that her friend would never marry such a man who behaves even worse than his real husband. The major tops of the list are gilded. The original goal was to penetrate deep into Monazalta. The Virgin tidied up the entrance, and it was justified. Particular attention was paid to the perimeter entrance, because it should be the face of the city. The arch will help to interest people even more. No matter how much the lady thinks, she cannot understand Teardrop, which is different from the one she was before. Future Chariot was much smarter. Given the interest in the vein and what she has done so far, this has remained unchanged, but perhaps the young lady is simply in a hurry. The Teardrops are still searching for their former family, but nothing comes of it. Pren continues to secretly follow them, but does not provoke them. If so, part of the gold mine should be given to those people. Later, it will become clear that Charietta is involved in this. It's better not to do anything dangerous. Of course, nothing will happen, because a drop in level is not worth such a risk. All that remained from that place were extraneous emotions. The girl didn't even need to rant about her feelings. Now her heart does not break into pieces at the mention of the Duke. Looking at Misha, who is sleeping peacefully on the right, the blonde sighs. She can't sleep again, so she's going to go have some tea. Walking out into the corridor, Miss is surprised at how quiet it is and hopes that she won't meet anyone. She might even be a little scared. The wishes did not come true, because on the way, the beauty was met by her husband. He scared her, because she didn't know that a man would be in such a place at such a late time. The brunette didn't expect the meeting either. It's quite cold in the corridor, so he's already taking off his jacket. There is no point in this, otherwise the body will freeze even more. Still, without listening to his wife, the young man throws the little thing on her shoulders. There would be no point in training if it was constantly cold. The lady was heading to the office to drink tea for better sleep. The same thing happened to Monazalt, so he was going to do the same. Now you can return to your activities. The man offers to accompany the girl, especially since she has yet to return his coat. This can also be an excuse to spend time together. They have very little time to just talk in complete silence. They have been together for several months now, so they are used to this pace of life. Brush doesn't know where the woman came from, but what kind of person she is matters. We can only hope that the beauty will someday open up and return back to what it was. She will not be afraid of anything and will take it calmly. The symphony is probably boring. The young man is glad that at least he was not forgotten while they are in different rooms and do not see each other. The girl is simply not ready for anything more. That's why she behaves this way. Asking for a lantern, the hero takes it from his small palm. The guy has good eyesight, so you can do without it. Teardrop asks to return the thing back, since she needed it so much more. The flashlight is needed to have time to run after the Duke, and this is also another excuse that is being used right now. The couple is already near the office. The man wants to leave his coat because the lady will then return alone. In order not to let her husband go, the blonde offers to drink tea. After this, she immediately blushes and blurs out in an attempt to explain herself. The idea was not bad. The hero drinks from a mug, resembling a bear in how dark it is. The taste is excellent because the tea was made well. Drinks are an integral part of a woman's upbringing and are always given the most time and attention. The girl later noticed that the man was looking at everything around him, as if in her office, he was interested in something that she didn't even know about. The young man did not pay attention to the interior decoration, but only asked to allocate the room to his wife. She filled and decorated the place, but forgot to clean up. Looking around her room, the lady involuntarily begins to shudder. She must get out, otherwise very soon she will look more like the one in which Cybus lives. If Brush is not tired of drinking only tea, then the girl promises that she will bring the snacks that Mercy brought her a little earlier. While Symphony was talking about Lord Brown and food, she didn't notice how she got caught in one of the piles, which flew straight onto her head. Putting his wife on the ground, the guy notices that she looks very seen, although he says in plain text that she is completely fine. Seating the young lady on a chair, the young man asks her to take a break while he cleans up. He broke the mug, so he was going to make amends. The blonde can't act cool no matter how hard she tries. You will still have to work hard, or just accept it. The brunette is going to help with laying out the documents. It will be difficult for him to do everything right, so he asks for help. With all due respect, the blonde asks only to remove the cup. Saying sorry again, the brunette sits down on the floor to collect the pieces. The girl holds out her handkerchief, which can be used to wipe the floor. She will clean the rest tomorrow morning, so she asks to sit back on the chair. The tea has cooled down, so you need to heat it up again. Instead of letting others do it, the Duke stands up, saying that he will take responsibility. The drink is again very hot, so you should drink it slowly. The dark liquid slowly pours into the kettle, filling it almost to the top. The man only filled his wife's cup under the pretext that he did not like tea. It's strange that he agreed to the proposal at all. The couple rarely gets to communicate, so the guy simply couldn't miss the last opportunity to be alone with the girl without other people. If the brunette continues to repeat the same thing, he may be misunderstood, which will not be the best scenario. The Duke says this not to confuse, but because he allows the symphony to wait as long as he likes. However, this does not mean that you need to stand in one place. The beauty has already been given a task. It is already clear that she will run away, but perhaps there are some good proposals that will serve as an answer. There is nowhere to rush anyway, because they have all the time ahead. Looking straight into the eyes, the hero says that they will not rush, because he has a habit of waiting. The next morning, things only got worse. The room looks like it's been hit by a hurricane, and the water can't be removed as it has spread. Pren is going to look at everything again, and is going to put the puzzle together. It won't be a big problem for him to fulfill his mistress's request. First, you should get rid of unnecessary papers. The lady sits on the floor and begins to collect leaves. She is actually very glad that Misha is not in the room. The most worrying thing is that the baby is most likely quarreling with Cybus. They are both adults, but the virgin behaves like a child, and the man is just the opposite. We are not talking about the internal state, but about the external one. One is too silent, while the other always insists on her own. The woman freezes as she examines one of the papers. From her appearance, it is clear that something definitely went wrong. She couldn't react that easily. The blonde looks at the dossier on Duchess Teardrop, which still remains in the hands of the mistress. Yesterday, the girl's husband was in the room, but the papers were folded in such a way that perhaps they were not caught. We can only hope that the Duke has poor eyesight, because otherwise they will both have a hard time. No one has the right to conduct a closed investigation. Horror is shown on her face because the girl is not joking. Hyothal knows, but makes it clear that it is not that important, also trying to calm him down. It doesn't appear that Teardrop is involved in the Duke's affairs. No one did anything to harm her, so the problem was solved. The displacement story is only the problem of the blonde herself. You can't drag others in, but knowing this, the girl still worries about it. If something bothers you, it is better to speak up right away. With the help of Lady Monosalt, it may be possible to solve the problem much more simply, which will be a plus for them. The young man is sure that there were probably many reasons, but the fact remains a fact. Thanks to a woman, it would be a sin not to trust such a person. I remember Misha's words. Nothing can be done because purebred elves hate killing. It is impossible to be sensitive to the smell of blood. Jyotal is also an elf, but he is only a half-breed. People like him don't feel murder, but at least he has eyes and understands everything. The blonde had time to live, so he had seen everything that was possible. He knows at least something about the people who surround him, and everything about their essence. A decent person is a lady. You don't even need to know anything about the Duchess of Monazalta, because you already have confidence in your choice. The man continues to say this, even though he knows what stupid decisions the girl made. He never considered anything hasty and followed her. The young man thinks that the lady did everything she could. He seems to be overly supportive, but with good reason. It's all worth it simply because the lady grew up to be a good person. She believes that the man is bringing a blizzard, but he just smiles. In the hall, you can hear Misha's screams that absolutely no one dares to tell her. Approaching the office, the beauty already feels this atmosphere. This is not a place to express feelings, but something terrible happens here. The little girl screams something about the man's eyes, who begins to try to defend himself and say that he looks just great. The couple walks away from the door because it will take a couple of hours for the fighting to subside. For now, it's better to go to Pren, but Mercy notices the Duke through the window. The lady did not know that the palace could be seen from there. The woman is not familiar with swords, but what is happening seems too much. His Majesty is the best warrior. A normal person is not able to cope with so many people, but the young man, on the contrary, stands and holds on to the last, because he can do it. It's more about giving advice than sparring. It helps to see the sword of an equally experienced person, and the demonstration helps to improve. Brown smiles. She also experienced this when she was just a trainee. The people here really like the young man. After all, it is not so easy to be born into the upper nobility and work as a mercenary. This takes away time and health, which is not left. Until the guy inherited the title, he was a mercenary. Compared to the time the lady spent in the city, she knows very little about her husband. The brunette always understood his wife without words, and treated her as an equal, trying to smooth out his stay in the castle. As a colleague and his partner, the beauty also had to work more, but this did not happen. The eyes are the most captivating. As the lady said, Monazalt signed a contract with Techie. Of course, the conditions are much better than other competitors, and this is a good job. The girl wonders who ended up at the top of the corporation. Perhaps it was simply not possible to verify due to agents, but the information would be useful. The man was also interested, so he identified the man and asked him to observe. He is afraid that he will see an unfamiliar face, but on the contrary, someone familiar comes out. Hans became a man. This is the same guy who used to work for the woman. They have found a suitable replacement because they cannot leave the place empty. Unfortunately, the young man easily succumbs to the sense of materialism. Even if he becomes one of them, it is never clear when he will decide to betray. Such a personality will definitely be useful depending on the type of situation. Hans will be able to hold out until needed. If the results are bad, there is always someone to blame. The young man would never have made such a request to the daughter of Duke Tiardrop. It's worth making sure that someone is ready to start working as soon as the situation calls for it. Instead of letting everyone in, you should split into groups. If everything continues in the same spirit as now, most likely it will be possible to change people often. Of course, this will be beneficial. Despite everything, Charietta's assessments did not change. Sometimes it happened, she got out. But if you look at the overall results, this was not enough to satisfy the Duke. The woman will be very nervous, and soon she will need a lot of people. Someone who sells light, or someone who will take responsibility, would be welcome. The man offers to talk about the heiress. The blonde prefers not to bother her head with such things, because there is no point in it. She seems to be stumbling over old problems. It seems the lady is afraid of becoming a burden to the Duke of Monazalta. Deep emotional pain remains inside. There is no need to hide problems, but still, in order to discuss the problem, it is worth describing the entire history of the relationship. In fact, Symphony already has a lot of skeletons in its closet, so there's no need to add even more. The stomp gets closer, and then the door suddenly opens and Mercy flies through. They have some problems that urgently need to be solved. There was an accident and it just collapsed. Still not understanding, the beauty waits to hear that it was a mine. Things don't stay golden for long. It is worthwhile to quickly figure out what happened and take control of the situation. Pren will stay in the office to work. With a huge number of strangers, the lady's identity will simply be revealed. She can't go there, but she's going anyway. A woman cannot sit idly by. She is simply obliged to do what she can, even if she cannot accomplish too much. The mine where the excavations were carried out was under rubble because it collapsed. If there is a place behind the rubble, the miners could survive, but you can prepare for the worst. Assuming the best option, it is worth starting a rescue operation. Even if it is for the sake of one person, it will still be important. The Duke is also going to the scene because he can speed things up. There should be no delays, otherwise it will only get worse. The wife should remain in the castle, because someone may be needed to give orders if something happens when Monazalt is not there. There will be many strangers in the mine. Besides, there's no need to show up when the teardrops are looking all over the world for the girl. She better stay safe. It's worth hurrying to save the survivors. After a mine collapse, injuries are not so bad because there is less air every minute. It won't be easy because if you move too slowly, a violation may occur. If you're unlucky, clearing away the rubble could have a bad impact on the miners. The first step is to contact the site that was mining the gold. They are still more experienced in this matter than the Duke. A woman also wants to be useful. She checks with other departments that were involved in the development of the mine. Even one worker with the right skills can help in a rescue operation. Apparently it's that bad. The girl thinks that there may be people behind the collapse part, and there is no way to find out how their condition is. If a little more time is wasted, lives will be at risk. For some reason, no one thought about fairies, which can also be used. Fairies can move freely, unlike other people. With their help, you can check whether the miners are alive and where they are. They can move anywhere. If you can ask kids about something like this, then it's worth going. Geothal wanted to go, but the lady announced at the last moment that she also wanted to go. Despite the anxiety, still going and putting yourself in danger makes you think that a woman wants to be human too. She has the right to this. Just being the one sitting in the back is too terrible. Going out and taking action in the face of danger is what a true leader like Brush is all about. The rescue operation will go much faster if they know where the survivors are. This is how you can understand what happened, because the collapse does not look like an accident. As Misha said, the city's soil is dense and strong, with good potential. The fairies said that the problem was not in the mines. The incident was caused by overmining. The management of the mine has financial problems, which raises rather vague suspicions. Managers were selected based on their professional skills. It's quite ironic that this kind of thing didn't get enough attention. They didn't take Montezalta seriously enough. Everyone considers the city residents to be no equal to them. Most did not want to participate, but helping the savages was a good deed. Now the girl feels terrible. The discussion was true. They thought it was better to bury everything before it came out. The Grand Duke himself crawled out and could have been pulled to the other side. Trying to be quiet so that no one will hear, the young man says that the man is actually called a monster. He's just a fool to give gold for the price of dirt. In any case, the rescue operation will destroy the mine even more if they continue to dig into it. The evidence must be destroyed so that no one finds out anything. The men destroyed everything that could potentially lead directly to them. Nobody wants unnecessary problems. Hyothal, who listened to everything, comes to the mistress. Her assumptions turned out to be correct, exactly the same as usual. Something needs to be done about this. First of all, it is worth tracking down those same people, because they will need to collect more evidence for a full investigation. If you do as my lady says, it will help in the future. The blonde is still worried about the beauty's condition. She is about to go to the scene. You need to let your husband know that the people are alive and come up with a new plan to save them. The woman arrived at just the right moment, because apparently the group no longer knew where to start. The young man does not understand what brought the symphony straight to them. He thought that she would return to the castle almost immediately, but it seems that this will not happen. Taking off her hood, the blonde says that they should stop the rescue operation, and preferably as quickly as possible. There are still people there and they can't get out, which is strange. Turning to Fazarn, the brunette orders everything to stop. He is confident in what he says because he trusts the woman. The reason will be known later, but for now Mahler should also help. The blonde suddenly realizes that they might not even listen to him. If words don't work, you just have to use force and force them to do what they're told. There simply cannot be any other options. It turns out that Her Majesty can also say such things. She's a little angry about what's happening and can't calm down. The incident occurred due to the outpouring of spoils. The culprits are trying to cover all their tracks so as not to be caught. Nobody needs extra problems. The miners knew about processing. Most were unaware, but if you meet with an experienced worker, then the reason will immediately be revealed. It was for this reason that Charietta became very angry. For help, you will have to contact the nearest oil department. Arriving at the people, the servants order them to stop because the Grand Duke said so. They will really help, but it's worth the wait. Since the company benefits, they can even calmly provide assistance. Time is of the essence. The people under the rubble need to hold out a little longer. Montezalta is strong, so there is no point in worrying. All you need is to trust people and fulfill your duties conscientiously. Obviously, the girl arrived only to fulfill her duties too. She could not stand by when people were in grief. Help has already been provided to all those in need. All that remained was to observe the seriously wounded. The rest escaped with a couple of scratches. Everything is fine, thanks to timely help. If the operation had been delayed a little, the situation would have been much more serious. The Duke showed a lightning-fast reaction, so we can rejoice. You should have seen Pierre running in circles when the ceiling collapsed. Laughter is heard. Judging by the lively conversations, everything will be all right very soon. Many people have a broken leg, but this is the least that can be survived. The doctor tries to calm everyone down. They can't want the stitches to come apart. Everyone looks very cheerful, or rather brainless. You can only call someone who breaks his leg and laughs with this word. It's a little rough. The boy asks who is hiding under the hood. The girl has a beautiful voice, and she must be beautiful. There is noise all around. The Duke suggests simply ignoring them, but it's worth introducing himself since the lady is in the room anyway. Most likely, the heads of the department responsible for the incident, and nothing would have happened if the lady had been more prudent. The woman removes the cloth from her head and greets everyone who is nearby. They were speechless for a split minute at the sight before them. I can't believe that the Duchess is standing in front of them. Judging by the words, perhaps the guys are upset because the lady did not come from the north, but from the capital. The man begins to shout about the beauty, which is seen very rarely. It is better not to block the view of Charietta, who is standing behind the Duke. Coming forward, one of the miners wonders who this lovely lady is. She is busy because she is the wife of the great Montezalta. After the words, a second rumble flies through the entire ward. The ruler has never been interested in women, and here he comes with such a beautiful person. The man is ready to run away, because the others still can't calm down. Some people ask to find a partner for them too. Putting his hand on his shoulder, the young man says that they have nothing more to do in this place. Those who are here have no control over themselves. Before going somewhere, Symphony asks to stop so that she can say something. Lowering her head, the woman asks for forgiveness for putting her subjects at such a risk. She didn't want this. Seriousness never came, because the guys again say that such a beauty should not apologize. Her Majesty's presence is already considered a blessing. The woman was not the one who caused the collapse, but she should have been watching the mine more closely. This happened under her control. The girl did not intend to harm, and if we say so, then rather the Grand Duke becomes guilty for the fact that they are sitting in this chamber. The fault is not connected with the collapse, because the man hid his wife from prying eyes. He says to just ignore it, because they don't seem to think as soon as they open their mouth. The more a lady gets to know Monosalt, the more good people she meets. She feels as much a part of the city as possible. Apart from the main royal family, there are rumors that there are 4 that are in the top quartet. Only dukes bear the title. As soon as the man crossed the threshold of the castle-like mansion, he swore that he would give his family everything he had. Phaleo swore an oath to the best of them, Duke Teardrop. He stands in the office and greets the guy, who bows his head as soon as he enters. The hero asks for forgiveness because he still hasn't found the symphony. They are doing everything possible, but there are no traces or clues that would help. There is no point in reproaching himself for the young man, since after all his efforts there are no results. The girl covered her tracks well and disappeared. The woman was always smart and lived up to expectations. The Duke had never been so frank, and she had never let him down. Perhaps that is why the man still remembers the girl. Teardrops look the same: silver locks, emerald eyes, foliage flowers, and a good heart. When the guy first saw the baby, he did not believe that in front of him were those very familiar colors of someone outside their family. Although the young man can no longer call the girl by this name and missed her, nothing ended between them. He had to do this for his daughter. Then she could only think about how to quickly return to her everything she truly deserves, because her happy childhood was taken away from her. It's not for nothing that the girl bears her last name, because even though it's difficult for her, she tries. Both daughters are so similar in appearance and age, but they are not even worth comparing. The lands of Malat were sold. This happened almost immediately after the beauty left the palace, and now there is not even a small clue. Buyers remember the beauty, but know nothing about her location. It seems that the land was not considered a profitable place at all. Perhaps the lady was so desperate for money. This must be true, because the lady left with only a few clothes and documents for Mala. If the man had known, he would have given his daughter much more. She wore and ate only the best while growing up. Perhaps the only thing left to do now is to walk around in despair. Finishing his drink, the Duke asks to continue searching without installation. It doesn't matter how many people are needed, because she is the one Charietta desperately needs. Even if the daughter does not live up to expectations, she will still remain the same heiress. No matter what anyone says, it's all just for the sake of maintaining the purity of the bloodline. Misha shows the girl a flower. We need to watch a little more, but at this rate it will grow very soon. Once everything is over, the couple will be able to spend more time together. The blonde didn't know that potato flowers looked like this. Watching the girl compliment her friend, Cybus assumes that they are having fun. He could disappear, as the elf wants, but he won't. Another skirmish begins. The woman asks to thank the lady for transforming this place. The man does not deny her merits. It is better not to call the beauty in this way, because she is now a married person who should not be bothered by such trifles. It is obvious that you cannot get respect and kindness from Misha. She will continue to call the person exactly as she wants. Alternatively, the beauty can be called directly by name. A woman knows how to resolve a conflict, so she tries to do it. In this case, the baby can call her friend exactly that, but it seems that she cannot call such a person directly by name. Even if Chariot says that everything is fine, the heroine still wants to be more respectful and believes that everything will turn out that way. Cybus says in a surprised voice that he does not believe in such a thing. These two fight 5 times a day, or even more, since this is the only activity. Flowers should not pay attention to anyone, but instead it is better to grow and fill Monazalt with their beauty and benefits. My thoughts are interrupted by the husband, who has finally found where his wife is. She watches the potatoes bloom, which is mesmerizing. The man has never seen anything like this, so he looks with interest at what almost glows in the sun, absorbing the rays. They are growing in completely new soil, but everything seems to be fine. If you're lucky, The first harvest will be this year. It's great to know that everything will be fine. The young man watches carefully because he likes the joy on the girl's face. Misha comes running as soon as her lady is called directly by name. She tries to defend herself because she doesn't like this kind of thing. It is normal for a husband to call his beloved this way, but the little girl believes that this is still unacceptable because even an elf does not dare to address her that way. It's better not to tease the child, but it's just a fact that they are much closer. This isn't a huge problem per se. Misha shouts something about this man constantly lying. They should quickly run away together, but instead, the girl falls on the lady. The baby got very excited, so she almost broke the potatoes. She asks for forgiveness, hoping that everything will be forgotten soon. The woman has every right to be angry because the flowers were almost ruined. She had no control over herself. Hugging the child, the heroine says that everything is fine because she was not hurt, and besides, everything will be fine. You shouldn't even cry. The beauty tries to calm her friend down while she sobs. She seems to be a little better now, but it still feels like everything was ruined. The elf should have been more careful. It's time to forget about what happened and talk about how everything has become normal. The lady could get hurt, and that's not the best option. Baby hates it when people suffer at the hands of other people. Even if the heroine were to hit herself, there would be nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't seem familiar. A person is so fragile that he can easily break. Things aren't so bad with the symphony. Misha herself saw that there was someone to take care of the beauty. The woman understands what's in her head, but she's different from Richie. This is the reason why Pren had to go into hiding to create a higher sect and why Misha stopped growing. Things got better, but there was a time when the illegal sale of slaves flourished in the empire, and elves were especially valued. They were rare and beautiful, so it makes sense that there would be more buyers. The girl's friend, Richie, became a victim of human greed. Acquaintances were kidnapped together by slave traders, after which the baby tragically died at the hands of another person. The little girl saw everything, and this was the worst death of the elf, known for her greatness and nobility. The heroine seemed to freeze when she saw the death of her friend. Charietta promises that she is not going to die the same way. Life expectancy is incomparable to theirs, but that still doesn't mean anything. The only thing Monitzalt can promise is that the baby won't have to go through this with her. The lady is one of those who deserves to be happy. A friend's smile makes her happier, so Misha should smile more often. Now the heroine understands how difficult it is to heal mental wounds. No more crying when everything is just getting better. For someone like this elf, who keeps her wounded soul hidden in the forests, how strong does one have to be to open up? Teardrop may be asking a lot, but I really want the child to find solace in words. Letting go of desire will allow you to let go of the past, which reminds you of something terrible.